Today's guest is Mikhail Kuznetsov, an entrepreneur, former marketer for RSD and Tai Lopez, and a content creator renowned for his expertise in helping influencers build and monetize their personal brands.
Tornow says be obsessed or be average. And I do think there is something in entrepreneurs that's like inherently broken, where it's like we just don't function the same as normal people.
My first million came in, it was the most underwhelming thing in the world.
And you're gonna be walking down the street like flowers with you yearning. You know, like all of a sudden women will bow to you. And you're like, nothing changed.
Highest highs and the lowest lows are within entrepreneurship or in anything that's worth mastering.
Like these guys, they get trapped in the unknowing loop. I do think there's a formula for breaking out of it, and it's the understanding that you're gonna die.
When all you do is grind in business, it's very, you know, like the Wolf of Wall Street scene is like, it's very acidic, it's above the shoulder, it's numbers all the time. Things like an ayahuasca ceremony really kind of reset my compass.
It's a great spiritual cleansing. On my ayahuasca journey, I went back in time and then I went forward in time, and the vision was majestic. What if an alien race is already here? Joe Rogan will become Jesus. What if the people that are conscious are actually the aliens?
Your thoughts compound, make sure that you're compounding into the right direction.
My recurring dream is a zombie apocalypse happens. I would for sure be like the supervillain who has a robot army. Robot bees.
Robot bees.
Robot bees.
Robot bees forever, man.
For life.
Robot bees for life.
For life.
So Dave Grohl's book is really, really, really good. You know why? Because his entire book is like written like he's just a fan. And he's like, and then one day I got to meet the Beatles. I couldn't believe it. They knew who I was. And the whole book is just like, this is so insane. I can't believe this is happening. This is a really cool mindset to have because he himself, he's, you know, amongst the greatest rock stars of our modern era. But he has that humility that makes him enjoy life super, super hard. And I thought about this quite a lot whenever I hung out with people that were better than me, specifically with snowboarding, such a random example, because with this really tight snowboarding crew in Austria, and they're all really good. And then I'm just this like dork who keeps falling. I can't stick my tricks as well. And I'm always like, oh, I'm such an imposter. Like they're all going to think I'm uncool because I have nothing to bring to the table because I can't do as crazy of the tricks that they do. And then I'm like, if I were them, what kind of person would I appreciate to be with me? Would I really give a shit if they're as good as me? And the answer was no, I wouldn't give a damn if they provide the good vibes. So I'm always like, if I'm the guy who's just the most excited to be here, the most happy, the most positive, it doesn't matter if I stick all the tricks or not. And that's kind of exactly the mindset that he embodies of just is like, I'm the guy who's the most hyped about this entire fucking journey. I'm the guy who's the most hyped to fucking be here. I'm honored. I'm excited. I'm learning. And he's putting that energy into the universe and it's coming back at him, you know?
Dude, I think there's such a trade-off though, right? Because you do have to drink your own Kool-Aid to an extent. Like how much do you drink your own Kool-Aid and how much do you drink the Kool-Aid of the universe? And then you have this calibration that's happening between like who you are and you're trying to transform and like be better and to be the best version. And you're going out and then there's this friction that gets created where you go out in the universe and sometimes like the feedback that you get is like, hey, you're not that fucking cool.
Yeah.
Right? But then you get feedback of like, you're the shit. And when you get that feedback, then it triggers this insane like dopamine cascade in your brain where it's like, I don't think God, I could do anything. And like, I find like there's two paths that people take, right? We've seen this with the people that we know. There it's like, okay, some people land on like, I am literally God, everyone's irrelevant. And like, it's just me and on the shit and everyone's irrelevant. And then you have kind of like what you're talking about where it's like, oh, wow. Wait a minute, I am so great. I'm actually one with God and the universe and everything that's happening. And so are you, which means by default, you are as great as I am because there's no separation. Separation is an illusion. And I think like Dave embodies that. I think like if you look back at some of the Kurt Cobain stuff, Kurt Cobain embodies a lot of that. Jimi Hendrix for sure embodied a lot of that, right? This idea that we are just like a channeling point for this greater capacity, which is the expansion of the universe, because our energy is unlimited, right? Like you wake up in the morning, there's all these books that talk about willpower, right? So you wake up in the morning, you have X amount of decisions you can make, and you deplete your tank. I don't actually believe that that's true. I believe that we are an indepletable energy vessel, right? It's just we've forgotten how to re-tap into the source energy that allows us to feel. And then you have the biological components, which is, okay, you know, you have glycogen spikes, so on and so forth. But if you stabilize the biological components, then the neurological and spiritual components, I think, are actually like an eternal system that's then calibrating. And the universe is it's like a guitar string, right? You just tune the guitar up.
Mm-hmm.
So a guitar that's in tune, and it's the same as like a human that's in tune. When you're in tune, you're playing and you're synchronizing and you're harmonizing, and things are harmonizing with you now. And that creates a dissolution of ego, because you realize that you can play the chord and you can be in tune. And that's, I think, Jago talks about this, like discipline equals freedom. What is discipline? Discipline is you tuning the string really accurately. Jordan Peterson, you tuning really accurately. And then it's how do you observe and respond to the resonance that the universe provides, right? You release a record, you release a program, you get really good feedback from the program. Was it really you that did it? Sort of, right? Sort of, like, yes, we did the work, but there was also something else going on. And how much you respect and disrespect that, I think, really makes the mark between like really, really great creators and artists and people that really build something that's a true cosmic legacy, versus people that are kind of just replicas and are always watching somebody else and they're like, oh, that person's successful, so let me replicate that. Let me copy that. Yeah, which is why I think like Dave Grohl's such a good example, because he's really like paving the path forward, but he's doing it in this unique way that's really in tune with.
It is so crazy the thing that you brought up with like, is it really our ideas? We're in Austin, Texas right now. By the way, you got a beautiful place here, man. It's so sick.
Thanks, bro.
On one hand, you got all these books. On the other hand, you got all these pieces of art everywhere, and like the universe loves you. So on one hand, like if someone would go to this place, it's like, okay, like a dude that makes a lot of money, that is clearly highly intelligent, lives here. But then also you're like, yeah, but he's also kind of hippie. Like, and then you got all the beautiful instruments. You got this huge studio right next to this to this room here. And anyways, like Joe Rogan lives in this city, and he talks about this whole, it's like, we're just vessels for ideas to manifest. And I remember the last idea that I've had, not the last, but the latest idea that, hopefully not the last, the latest idea that I've had, it just came into my mind. It was actually an idea that took our one of our new offers that we tested, from like kind of working to, oh shit, now we really got something on our hands, and this will be hopefully the next offer that we're going to scale to $1 million a month. And that idea, it just popped in my head. It was just not even like, it was not created by an effort where I'm like, I'm going to come up with something. It was more like, hey, why don't we do this? Like, oh, this is so obvious. Like, just do this and add this, and now it will be super easy to sell. And lo and behold, it is. And the funny thing is, my closers, they've been selling how should I call it? A down-to-earth offer, not the craziest, easiest selling offer. An offer that is very good. It sounds very good, but it's also not like the sexiest selling offer in the world. And they've been selling that for 2-3 years now. I talked about this ad nauseum on this podcast. And now you give them this like really easy to sell offer, but they have the skill set to sell really hard, really well, and build a pipeline and build relationships to all our buyers or would-be buyers. They're like, oh my God, this is actually really sick now, because now we got everything in place to make it work. But the other thing that you mentioned is like, you kind of oscillate between I am the shit, I'm so fucking cool, to complete humility, especially as an entrepreneur. You do that in life in general, but with entrepreneurship, you do that on steroids. Like I have that within 12 hours. Sometimes I'm like, I am so sick, I'm the best motherfucker in the world. And then I'm like, I am but a humble servant.
I was like 20 minutes, in the sauna. It's like you get in there, you're like, I got this. I'm a machine. Like 25 minutes in, you're like, I'm sweating. I'm like, get me out of here. I want mommy. Help. That's literally entrepreneurship, and I'm not sure. But it's such a funny journey too. It's like, I love it. I would not want to change it. It's such a weird, I think athletes probably feel the same. Artists feel the same, and entrepreneurs feel the same. It's this very juxtaposition of extreme self-doubt and like extreme self-confidence. Well, so there's this theory that almost all great entrepreneurs or business leaders or artists or movie directors did it as a reaction to an insecurity that they had. If you look at like Tarantino, you can tell Tarantino is highly obsessive compulsive, right? You can tell by the way that he does his interviews. And then you look at the movies, and the movies are exceptional, right? So I do think there is this, I call it like kind of a slingshot effect, where you have the ability to define the direction of the capacity of power, right? Like what makes a spring work? It's the potential of the power to be released. And so the direction of that is really, really important, because when that spring deloads of all of your childhood trauma, of everything that you've been through, right? Of going through being a teenager, maybe getting picked on, all of these things, that loads your spring up. And for some people, that direction ends up being like very destructive, ends up being like drugs, alcohol, just really, really destructive stuff. But then you have this nuance in like entrepreneurs, movie directors, music producers, where there's not a target. And this is what I think is really interesting. The target is imaginary. The target in itself is an illusion that you've self-created. Like, I want the type of life where I can travel wherever I want. I want the type of life where I have X amount of this. And you look in the world, and there's some hints of blueprints. You have the Warren Buffetts, you have the Ray Dalios, you have hints of blueprints, but there's not really a dartboard. Like, we have a little dartboard there, and that's to remind me that the target is illusionary, and it's ever shifting, and it's ever transforming, because one day you wake up and you go, okay, cool, I'm really excited to get money. And then you find, oh, that was actually at the expense of happiness. Now I really want to get happiness. And so that target continues to shift. And the more that you load up, like, I actually think the higher the potential of that load, the more capacity there is to do something great. The more that negative load affects you, the more the capacity there is to do something great. But the targeting and the direction setting has to lean towards a positive. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is they get stuck in this unknowing. And I'm sure you can relate to this. When people go, oh, what is a business idea that will make me, it's like, that's so far off of the mindset of where you actually need to be. That's not, and then, people get upset when you, quote, don't have an answer for them, because the core ethos is you should be able to self-source these answers. If you are not calibrating to be able to self-source the hints that you need, the information that you need, you can get like all the guidance. You can get a proven blueprint. You can get the plug-and-play CRM systems. You can get the automated. You can get everything. But if you're not able to self-source that direction of where your internal spring is meant to deload, where you're meant to fire that next shot, there's no mentor. There's no book. Nothing is going, because there is an internal calibration that says, I'm not certain. I think there's something there. I might be completely insane, but in my mind, there's something there. And look at, like, Tarantino created a whole world, right? Look at all these guys that created something out of nothing. So I've always had so much respect for like guys like yourself that take this idea and go, hold on, we're going to transform a hypothetical into something that's very concrete, very real, and that makes a real meaningful impact in people's lives. Like, that's beautiful. It's almost akin to, like, I know this is going to sound kind of weird, but like having a small child. Like, a program is like this thing that goes on in the world, and there's a point where you no longer control it. A business is something where eventually you no longer control it. It's just doing things, and you just hope that you did the right thing in the early stages so that the core principles and ethos with the way that it behaves are congruent with who you are, because now it's a representation of you now, and you don't control it. And that for guys like us, I think it'd be very, very powerful, but also very frightening in a way, because we always want to do good. We always want to do right. And it's an immediate reflection. Business and jiu-jitsu are very similar. Jiu-jitsu, you can be like, oh, I'm the shit. And then you get on the mat and like, you just get wrecked. And it's instant feedback, right? So yeah, I just, I've always thought that to be interesting, of like these guys that get trapped in the unknowing loop. Yeah. And I do think there's a formula for breaking out of it. And it's the understanding that you're going to die. Ooh. And like, once you really understand that, then you understand that the big risk is something totally, the idea of risk is totally something different than you thought that what it was, right? The riskiest thing is being there and looking back and going, oh, I did the wrong thing. I did the wrong thing, right? Yeah, or I did no thing. Like, oh, that's even worse. Right, yeah, then that's kind of what I mean, yeah.
I've said this many times before. People rather just suffer for 10 years, 15 years in a career, whether that's business or a regular job, that they don't really get fulfillment from, than spending a fucking weekend by themselves, sitting at home in a room without distractions, just in introspection, figuring out what they really want out of life and how to fucking get there.
Yeah.
And it was hard enough for me when I was in my early 20s. Nowadays, it must be even harder because of all the distraction, all the short-form dopamine. Like, when was the last time you really sat somewhere and just did nothing? I mean, I know you meditate. I meditate every fucking morning, but I know most people don't. So they wake up, first thing to do, grab the phone, start scrolling. Then they get up, brush their teeth, whatever, get their morning coffee, keep scrolling. So there's never the space that you create that is necessary to even figure out what it is that you want out of life. And then you not only scroll around as a distraction, but you also excuse your goals because you see the guy with the women. Right? So now you're like, oh, the women, yeah, I want that. Then you see the guy with the crazy epic body. Oh, no, I want that. Then you see the guy with the money. No, I want that. I feel that myself whenever I hang out, for example, with people like Michael Sartain, good friend of mine. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool what he does. Like, he's throwing all these parties. And on a surface level, I'm like, yeah, I want that too. But then I sleep a night over it and I'm like, to be honest, throwing parties fucking sucks. Yeah. I gotta like listen to stupid music. I like metal. I'm an introvert. Do I really like that? No, not really, right? And then I hang out with other people like, oh yeah, that's a pretty cool life. So it's really hard to really find what it is that you really want. And the antidote to that is, number one, like you said, memento mori, understand that you will die. Number two, put a little bit of space in, be by yourself, and really, think about what it is that you want out of life. You can meditate on that. Some people have also told me, and I've experienced this myself too, things like an ayahuasca ceremony really kind of reset my compass. Now, I don't want to advocate for ayahuasca because I still think there's a lot of dangers to it, especially if you have genetic dispositions that can make psychosis easy for you. So I'm not saying do it. I'm saying I did it and it really helped me reflect my goals. And the other thing is you need to do something. Just fucking start doing something, because a lot of times you need to do something in order to really understand whether that is something that you want or not. A great example of that is entrepreneurship. It's one of the sexiest sounding things on the surface. But every entrepreneur that is not a fucking scammer or a fake guru will tell you, hey, entrepreneurship is really fucking hard and you kind of got to go all in. Now, there's an exception to that. I think you can absolutely have a business that makes you 10, 20, 30K a month just on the side without having to go all in. But I don't really consider that entrepreneurship. I consider that just like a hobby or a side hustle. But anything beyond that, you're going to have to go fucking all into that. You got to do a lot of learning. You're going to go through a lot of trial and error, a lot of tribulations and trials, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of pain. The highest highs and the lowest lows are within entrepreneurship or in anything that's worth mastering. And once you really understand that, what's so funny?
Look at this little thing doing a little circle. It is like a little piece of lint that's just doing circles.
That is wonderful too, if you think about it.
It's amazing.
It's just like piece of dust outside of the balcony.
It's like one of those moments, like one of those like Van Gogh moments. You like want to paint it and turn it into something beautiful. Yeah, and the most profound thought happening at the same time. It's all
beautiful.
It's all synonymous.
It's a metaphor, dude.
Yeah.
So that's what it was for me. And my first business was dating advice, personal development advice, maybe multiple million. And I needed to go through that in order to then understand, wait a minute, that's really close to my passion. But what's even closer is teaching business, because business combines all the parts about social dynamics and dating that I have really acquired over the last, 10, 15 years. And it puts a multiplier on it. It's all those personal development aspects on steroids. And who knows, maybe in 5 years and 10 years, I'll find the next thing that I'm really excited and hooked about. But the cool thing is, while I'm doing that, number one, I hone my skills and those skills stack. That's really, really great. They compound. And number two, I make a ton of money while doing that, which enables me to live a free life, invest money, give a best life possible to my girlfriend, my future kids, and so on and so forth. And then number three, it allows me to enjoy the process. That's a big, big, big thing. I would say, spent around 3 years not allowing myself to enjoy the process. Yeah. Those were the 2.5, 3 years where we had to figure out cold traffic, and I'm like, not allowed to enjoy this weekend until we figured it out. And that was a big mistake. Yeah. That was 2-3 years. Sure, I had amazing moments. I still traveled around the world. I was at sick parties. I threw some parties myself. I went to dinner. I've done all these cool, amazing things nonetheless. But if looking back retrospectively, I'm like, I could have enjoyed the moment a little bit more. And that was 2-3 years of my fucking life. I'm 34 years now.
Yeah.
So that's important to always remember that.
And that's based on this belief break, right? Where you have an underlying belief that if you just, and we've talked about this before, where if you just outwork, you will persevere. Like if you like just simply out consistent whoever it is, like your previous version of yourself, and just push through. But life is this big reflection. So you start with this understanding that, okay, well, you know what? I have this one competitive advantage. Like I have this where I'm just more resilient. Like you just won't break me. Like I'll just keep going. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
And so that, but that sounds like, oh wow, that's really cool. That's very, like very David Goggins of you. Sick. But at the same time, stay hard, right? But it creates this perception that, okay, well now life is a battle. Now life is something that needs to be worked on constantly. And so you have an actual construct that's outside of yourself that becomes a framework for how the rest of the world starts to present itself to you. Actually, it's not even just how you see the world. The world actually starts to present itself to you congruently with your own internal beliefs. So it's like, well, if I just work harder, I'll do it. And your world says, yes, you will. And it keeps feeding you what you need on that dopamine spectrum. And what you mentioned, I think, is really interesting. It's this necessity to be, like Grant Cardone says, be obsessed or be average. And I do think there is something in entrepreneurs that's like inherently broken, where it's like we just don't function the same as normal people. Like on a Saturday, I'm like, I love building it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it.
Right. The average person can't wait to, quote, get off work. I don't remember the last time I did any work whatsoever. It's just a blast. Right. We're having a good time. And so here's what I think is interesting. It's this cortisol dopamine switch that happens where in the beginning you go to your job, maybe you hate your job, and it's cortisol. So you attach cortisol equals small amount of money that I get, and that is now an identity anchor for you.
Yeah.
Okay, you will be stressed to get money, and to create a different construct, what you actually have to do is you have to self-hypnotize yourself that thing that you thought was really stressful is actually really fun, and you have to keep telling yourself that. Like I'm sure you had this. If you remember back in the beginning, you were like, "This sucks." You're like, "This is terrible," and I'm gonna have to keep doing this. I think the only way I could keep doing this is if I just lie to myself and just tell myself it's fun, and then you're staying up late and you're like, this is just terrible. And then like 6 months later, you're like, so am I having fun? Yeah. You're like, oh no. But then what happens? It's like a little straw. It breaks and then you can't go back. You can't go back. Like you couldn't create stress. You couldn't try. You could throw like, here's 50 projects and like
it's weird.
Your team quit and like your business chapter 11 or whatever. Like cool. That's not even stressful. That's like a puzzle.
It's literally a puzzle. A fucking puzzle.
It's great.
You're like, oh wow, that's interesting. Let me look. What if I? It's like a Rubik's circle, which by the way I never saw. I'm like the most dumbest guy in the world to solve these stupid Rubik's circles. I'm so bad at it. That's exactly how it feels. Like, oh, okay, so now the colors are over here. What if I split it like that? Oh, no shit. Oh, that's interesting. And the funny thing is too, is like this is something a lot of entrepreneurs get scared of when they have when they kind of transition from that Lagrange point of I'm a solopreneur, I have 100% freedom and 0% responsibility to, okay, now I get a team, right? I hire 1 or 2 or 3 people. And because in the beginning, they'll see the upside of like, oh, cool, like this thing is now being done. I don't have to fuck around with it. But then at some point, through the back door, in comes the responsibility and the pressure that comes along with it. So a lot of entrepreneurs are then like, oh shit, and then have a bad month, right? So now they're sitting on costs.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, I'm paying money. And that's happened to me multiple times before.
No.
But then what you always got to realize is like, all right, well, if push comes to shove, I can always just fire everybody and just go back to where I was before.
Right.
So ultimately, what are you afraid of? Nothing can fucking happen to you anyways. The worst scenario that is, whether you're at $1 million a year, $1 million a month, or $1 million every 10 years, the worst case scenario is that you just go back to just being yourself. You wake up and you just grind it out. You can still make $25K a month profit just by yourself without ads, without a brand, without anything.
So easy.
Yeah.
I did a post about this. I'm like, it was a real accomplishment back in the day when we had tigers and like, and shit. It was like surviving. It was like just getting to like the next, like having your shelter.
Yeah.
And like you have your spear and you're like, the tigers won't get us. And I feel like so much of society is just like living like that. They're like, I'm going to throw it on the farm. And they're just like holding on for fucking dear life. And it's like, dude, you're just holding on to like get to the end of this thing, dude. Like you're just trying to like it's like watching a series of, it's like trying to watch the Harry Potter movies, and you're like, man, I just want to find out what happens. Taking so long, you know. They're just frustrated. It's like, dude, there's all this magic that's happening around you. You got to learn to enjoy it, like you said. And
There's this literal magic
literal.
in the example, Harry Potter magic, and in the real world.
I got you. Yeah. And you mentioned Rubik's Cube. Here's what's interesting with Rubik's Cube. So, Rubik's Cube is one of those things, and I think is really similar to business, where if you sit with a Rubik's Cube and you try and solve it, it's going to take you a really, 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 really long time. But there's a specific sequence of turns that you do that if you just like look it up, then you'll be able to solve it from any position consistently. And what's interesting is that sequence of steps doesn't really change much comparative to how the Rubik's Cube is positioned in the beginning. So you can take it from almost any position and just run the steps, and then you'll be able to solve it. And I think that's a very interesting correlation to business, because when I found out about that, I'm like, I'm a pretty smart guy. So I sat there with a Rubik's Cube. I couldn't do it. I sat there for like 3 nights. I'm like, I'm not going to look up the solution. I'm smart enough to be able, I couldn't do it. I couldn't solve it. And I looked at the solution, obviously, in like 15 minutes, you know, you kind of memorize it. And I think business is really similar. When you have this sequence of steps, which is why like I think programs like your program are so great. When you have the steps, you don't have to sit there and solve this thing that actually I think in some ways is unsolvable for people because they don't have all the pieces. It's like business is a lot like, you know, those little the puzzle things that you like lay out and you have the photo of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
But I think business is a little bit different. I think you have pieces of the puzzle that you know. So it's like you have some puzzle pieces and you have like a picture of a corner. But then your buddy over there, he has the other pieces and he has the picture of the other corner. And you've got to go figure out what that is, right? And the marketing piece, and then you have the sales piece, and then you have the fulfillment piece, and then you have the cold traffic piece, and then you have the automations, and you have the operations, and all these different components of like the leadership and the team dynamics. And that's why I think it's such a cool individual but team-based game. It's very much like a sport, and just like watching you grow has been really cool because you've gone through these like, oh, you also to the moon, and then you're like kind of go back and you're like, wait, life is good, and then you're like, is finding again that tuning where you're able to enjoy the process, and the financial incentive just becomes like this thing that happens. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a happening. It's not an outcome thing. It's a happening that's happening along the way.
It's a result of the actions you just keep putting in.
Yeah.
Without that's at least how it always felt to me. I never felt the need of it working because I was so bought into the process and I enjoyed it so much that when it did work, and literally I'll never forget when my first million came in, it was the most underwhelming thing in the world. It was so underwhelming.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I saw the number or if someone sent me the numbers. Like, oh yeah, here's like 1.00 whatever 68 or something like that. It's 1,068,000 or something, and I'm like, yeah, what? Yeah, you back to work? It was a
You have like this expectation you're going to be walking down the street like flowers with yearning. You know, like all of a sudden women will bow to you. And you're like, nothing changed.
So it was like, oh, cool, yeah, whatever. But I want to finish this task here, rather. Like, I just get back to work, and it was such a. And I also think here's what I always wonder. I always wonder: is there people that have that as a goal, like million? I need to make a million, and then they make it, and it works for them, or does it only work if it's just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna be committed to the process?
I think it only works if you're committed to the process, and here's why: because the people it's an emotional thing, right? So there's a threshold where there's no response. It's like an extra 10 grand. There's nothing. Like there's no dopamine hit. It's just like cool. It's just like changing the Spotify song on the way to the thing. Like you're like, yes, new song, but you're not like, I hope there's another song after this song. Like you know that there's another song, and it's cool because you kind of don't always know what that song is. So I think the nuance is in the process of what it is that you're making, because the money is a measure of what you're making, but it's not really what you're making, right? You're going to take that money, and if you have kids, you'll create a life for them. And if you have a significant other, you'll take them on an amazing trip, or you'll go buy real estate. Or so it is just a tool and a vehicle. So you're acquiring this very specific tool, and it starts to feel a little bit like cyberpunk after a while, where you're just like, okay, like I have X credits, you know, and you're like, you look at your credits, and it's like up and down, and like sure you have like, you know, crypto fluctuations, and you just look at it and you're like, I feel literally nothing, and it's actually kind of scary when you feel that, because I kind of miss having anxiety around it a little bit. I used to have, you remember that feeling where you're like, man, I really got to go make like 10 grand, or else like, oh, the company's not going to do great, and like, there was this driver, and eventually it was just like with the Industrial Revolution. Eventually, that system just breaks for you. It just no longer functions. You look at it and you go, why would I take a horse and buggy when I have a car here? You know, why would I try and like swim across the ocean when I have a boat available? And so it distorts your reality, and I'm sure you'll resonate with this. It distorts your reality where there's a process that you go through as a human to get to that point, and it disqualifies like 99% of the population from you being able to interface with them on certain levels. So, and this is, I think, actually one of the biggest challenges in entrepreneurship, like the building the system, the launching the product. I think that part's relatively easy. It's can be difficult, but relatively easy. Being able to sit down, like us being able to sit down, right? You had to fly halfway across the world, and like I consider you one of my closest friends, and I was talking about this with my partner, and it's like all of my friends are psychos. Like all of them are complete psychos, and I love that. Yeah. I don't want you to have more than like a couple hours. Like I'd be concerned. You know what I mean? I'd be like, are you good? Like, are you okay? So I think it you know, it's true. Yeah, like it decreases the quality. It makes it feel real. Yeah. Instead of this like kind of autonomous process of humans interacting, and is just like a social one-upping kind of situation. It's like, what is that? Like, this stuff's never made sense to me. And so it becomes like this big game of like, cool, put up numbers. But like you said, there's a layer of happening this identity level. Yeah. That's so much more powerful. So much more. And if you look at guys like Elon, these like hyper billionaires, they've really mastered like Zen, this art of Zen, of like existing, of being present. And that's what I really respect. I think the money stuff is sick. Fuck yeah, go get money. But there's this other layer where like you understand what's happening on Earth. Yeah. And that part's really cool.
And it's almost like you went to Vietnam, and only other people who went to Vietnam can resonate with what you're fucking going through. Yeah. Not saying entrepreneurship is like Vietnam. I'm not saying that, but it's a metaphor. Yeah. And the reason why I really noticed that is my girlfriend, God bless her, she's always like, hey, you should hang out more with my friends. And her friends are really nice people. No doubt about that. Not saying anything else other than that. But their life is entirely different. They work at their jobs. They come home. That's it. And like you said, like all my friends, all my very close friends, 90% of them are entrepreneurs. They have that psycho mechanism that I have in a positive way. Yeah. They're very driven. And I'm like, I don't feel I resonate as much on a vibrational level or even on a logical level with people that don't go through that. It's like we have so little in common. It's like, mate, you're in a different dimension. I'm not saying your dimension is worse than mine. I'm just saying it's so different. It's really hard for me to resonate or find things to talk about at all, because everything, even if we talk about the same thing, I'm looking at it through an entire different lens. So when someone says like, whatever, oh, we went to that restaurant, the pasta was really cheap, I'm like, I wonder what their profit margins are like. Yeah, never doing.
Or you're like, cheap pasta.
I'm looking at the same.
I don't know this. I cannot compute.
I look at the same thing, and I'm like, I'm completely different. So that's why I like the idea of hanging out with fellow entrepreneurs, because I know they're dealing with the same kinds of pressures as me. They're looking through the same lens as I do. And then every now and then I hang out with people that might be entrepreneurs, but they came to entrepreneurship from a completely different level. A lot of spiritual people. I consider you one of my most spiritual friends. Another one, for example, is Misha Yanez. So he's an entrepreneur, but he could probably be making 10x the money, but he doesn't want to. He'd rather just travel around and go to Burning Man. He keeps inviting me to Burning Man every single year, and I'm like, you should go. I was here to grind, man.
I'm calling it. We're going to convert Max to techno. I'm calling it. We're getting a lot. It's
It's exactly
Anyway,
the problem. If
it's
there was epic bands at Burning Man, like Metallica, Trivium, Devil Driver, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go.
Ayahuasca plus melodic techno. Ayahuasca part 2, 2.0.
Have you ever done ayahuasca?
Well, yeah,
When was the last time?
3 times. It was about 4 years ago now.
Wow,
It's been a while. It's a great spiritual cleansing.
super.
But yeah, I mean, I'll kind of re-highlight the disclaimer you mentioned earlier. Definitely, not for a loose conscience is how I'll say. Like if you're kind of beepity bopping around back there,
Like,
maybe yeah,
boppity.
yeah, beepity boppity. You know,
I am the NPC.
yeah. If you're NPCing, start with some other more introductory.
Don't advocate for that.
Introductory adventures first, kids. You know what I'm saying? It's like in any video game. You gotta do the tutorial. If you don't know the moves, do the tutorial first.
I've had a friend once. I told her about ayahuasca. She's like, "But you're still in control, right?" I'm like, "No, that's the point. That you are not in control." So when you think about that, it's like, okay, you're not ready, or maybe you shouldn't. But here's the weird thing about ayahuasca, which I really realized last year when I did it for the second time. There's such a huge component of you needing to be ready and actually working with it. So, for example, like alcohol, like no matter what you fucking feel like emotionally or how ready you are, like you drink a bottle of wine, you're going to feel something, right? Or maybe you're not a lightweight like me, like a bottle of Jack Daniels, you're going to fucking feel something. But with ayahuasca, it's like you can drink a lot of it, of that weird, bitter, disgusting tasting substance. And if you're not emotionally ready or spiritually ready, how they would say, nothing happens. I felt that on the first night of the second ceremony. I couldn't, it sounds so woo-woo. I couldn't open myself up enough. I couldn't open my heart. I was very cynical. I'm like, duh.
Sure.
And people around me started crying and like making noises. And I'm just like, this sucks, fucking hippies. And I was just like bored, and it didn't work. No matter how much I drank. There was a guy there, he drank eight doses.
Wow.
Right. He's like, I could make it work. But then on the second night, like I really try to come in consciously and like really be like, okay, open. Like the Rick and Morty would say, open your mind. Have you seen that?
Open the portal.
Open your mind. That's how I tried to come in, and then it hit me pretty hard. And it was a very beautiful thing.
That's that tuning, man. That's that tuning, and the universe is watching you, and it's understanding that. I think we're really lucky. We're really blessed because it's watching. It's pain. There's whatever you want to call it, right? I don't like the labels. There's something that's guiding the process. There's a core ethos, if you will, that's guiding the process of this flow of energy, and it's seeing goes, oh, this is out of tune. I'm going to wait. It's almost like if you were a band and you're about to go on stage, but like when your guitar strings was open and it was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to create rain. I'm going to create a delay for the day, and I'm going to have you go on when you're in tune the next day. And I think that is one of the biggest, most important things, is to really, like they call it, respecting the muse, right? To respect that energy and to send love to that energy and to feel the love that it comes back, because something as small as like you're driving and there's a delay of some sort, right? The average person is, delay, this is unfortunate, but the way I've started to perceive this is with so much gratitude of, okay, so now I'm going to board the plane at a different time. I'm going to walk off the plane in a slightly different sequence. The interactions I'm going to have are going to be slightly different. And you trust that that is exactly what was meant for you, and you stop resisting. And when you stop resisting and you surrender to this, it frees up so much mental capital to create that flow state that you need, because you are inherently not in control. And that's something that, you learn through these experiences is you're in control of something. You're in control of your own identity shaping, which is so cool. It's like you are a sculptor, you are the Michelangelo of your own psyche and of your own reality. But there's also this construct that you are on this rock, and you have a giant fission reaction that's responsible for all life. And at any moment, a comet or a solar flare or an asteroid could come and wipe everything out. And that, to most people, is so debilitating that it's like, okay, can't process, shut down, drink, or party, or like anything to escape. And finding a way to actually feel that magnitude of like this constantly expanding universe in your little particle, like your human particle just in it, you know, doing its thing and going like, ooh, that is so overwhelming. And then surrendering and leaning into that as the reality, I think is where, at least for me personally, I found a lot of power in that, because then you feel like you belong. You feel like you belong. And I think everyone who's a good-hearted human deserves to feel like they belong. If that's, you know, stemming back to when you were a baby, right? And your mother would hold you and you would feel that warmth, you would feel that safety, through to as an adult where you embrace your partner and they feel safe, right? Or to when you have a spiritual experience and you are held by this entity, if you will, that protects and guides you in a way that you would have never had the power to. You had the courage to step in, but you might not have had the power because you would have put up the shield, right? We would have put up the shield and gone, ooh, my ego can't quite handle that. But once you surrender your ability to not just put up the shield, but this construct that you even have arms, right? Then you go, okay, I can no longer defend myself. Do what you will. That is, especially for a man, that's a very vulnerable place to be, right? Because we like to be the drivers. We like to be in control. Everything we've built our life around has been around control and quality and a standard that's very esteemed. And this says, show me who I am. Because when I look in the mirror, I still have labels. I still have anchors. So it takes this external experience to show you who you really are. And yeah, it's really cool when you come out of that and go, wow, there's something very like holy, majestic, powerful behind that. And that I think affects how you lead your business, how you launch your products, how you market, how you show up, how you have podcasts like this, right? How we have interactions even when we go out, right? We're always trying to kind of hype up the people around us. And like those guys are really weird. Like there's no way they are genuinely that happy.
Yeah. It's weird for regular people to see that.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because you're amongst the best people to bounce off for me. Like it takes us like a single fucking elevator ride to go from like thinking, working, serious business to like by the time we step into the elevator, by the time we get out of the elevator, it's a completely different vibe. It's just fun. I saw this yesterday. I saw it the day before. We were just dicking around having a good time. And people come in, they're like, are these guys for real? Are they drunk? And we're like, no, we're just riffing off each other because we've mastered this skill of just being goofy and funny and pushing our own state. At least that's what it feels like from years of just doing like social dynamics and stuff like that. And like you said, like when all you do is grind in business, it's very, you know, like the Wolf of Wall Street scene is like, it's very acidic. It's above the shoulder. It's numbers all the time, you know? Hey. Nobody knows if the stock goes up, down, or in fucking circles. I don't care if you're Warren Buffett, if you're Jimmy Buffett.
So good.
So
good.
That's all just like very like super serious, right? And then I don't know, as a man, for me it's like I miss the goofy times where I'm just like having a beer, sitting on a stupid park bench listening to metal like I used to do in my teenage years. By the way, in Austria, the drinking age was 16 back in this. It's still true. I'm true. Yes. Not advocating for that, but it's anyways, it's some piece of context. And so, but now all of a sudden, and this is the funny thing, okay, so my entire life, I never wanted to be this like corporate dude, like, oh yes, indeed, like wearing a fucking, you know, like
a little briefcase.
Yeah,
little briefcase Max.
So, and I'm like, and I feel part of that. I'm living part of that. Now, clearly, I never wear suits unless absolutely necessary. I'm a much different boss than what I consider like the classic embodiment of a boss.
Yeah.
But still, there's elements of that where I'm like, okay, I got to be fucking serious now, okay? Like, I got to push the team. I got to handle stuff. Got to handle the clients, marketing, advertising, and so on and so forth. So then I'm like, it's really hard to then tap into this, like, younger boy, stupid, silly self. But it's a must like anything else. I get this question all the time. Like, Max, how do you balance after like a crazy work day to go out, have fun, whether that is with your girlfriend, with your best homies, whether you're going out trying to meet women, or when you're going on a date, how do you stop being in your head and being in this like numbers thinking that you were before? And I'm like, I always said the same. It's like any other muscle. At first, it takes you maybe 2-3 hours to go from hardcore business thinking to silly fun thinking. But me, like I said, now it takes me a fucking elevator ride. I'm snapping out of it. A small trick that really helps me is I write down all ideas, anything I want to do. I write it in my phone, so it's not floating around in my head anymore. I do the same when I'm meditating, by the way. So when I meditate, I want to meditate 15 minutes. I put the timer on 16 minutes, so I have the first 60 seconds when my mind is still very business-minded to write down things. Oh, I got to do that later. Oh, I got to remind the thing. So I take these extra 60 seconds to just write everything down to get it out of my head. Just like that Dumbledore thing, you know, where he extracts the memories. Yeah, that's kind of how it feels to me. Yeah. And then once it's out, I also try to put a physical barrier between it. So I try to work in an office environment, at a table, or in like one corner of the apartment. And then I do the fun parts where I'm like watching YouTube videos or eating in the other corner of the apartment. So we want to put a physical barrier there. And that really helps to train that muscle to then just go from hardcore business, not taking no for an answer, to the silly, goofy boy that just has fun. One question I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned a lot of it is like the universe provides, yada, yada. What do you think, how much of life is predetermined versus how much we create ourselves?
So I think you have fractality to this, right?
So
this is a great question. I think you have fractality to this. Fractality is this idea that there's an infinite level of complexity, even in something as simple as a single atom, right? So like we have this table here, and this table is made out of like some wood type of situation, and that wood is made out of apparently of these little atom things, which is in itself insane. And the atoms are made up of these strings, right? So that's the string theory component. So I think you have a fractality where in every moment, like with every breath, if you've done like heavy holotropic breath work, especially, you can really tune into this, where through every breath, the reality actually shifts. Because time, you mentioned predetermined, time is just a dimension. Time is the definitive dimension as far as where we've gotten as a species with our understanding. But clearly, is it the final dimension? I don't think it is. I don't think it's the final dimension. I think it's a dimension. So you have this fractality of infinite possibilities, and within that fractality, you have deterministic, you have the ability to, like let's say you schedule a dinner with the missus, and she's a little late or something, she's getting dressed. You have every variability. You could be really rude. You could be really, you could be like, oh, baby, you look amazing. This is great. Of course, no problem, right? So you have all these variables that they're always morphing. So I think within the morph, you have almost infinite power to morph that into whatever. But, last I checked, I can't grow wings and fly physically within the current physiological construct. So it's you have a predefined frame for where the spirit has landed. And that spirit goes through a certain process within the frame that you have. So for us, it's like being a human. And so many people forget, like, to be a human is crazy. Like, the way the human body works is actually, if you were like, hey, Mikhail, like, architect the human body, I couldn't do it. Like, the way that we perceive things, the spatial recognition, the audit, like, how does an ear work? Like, we're able to comprehend and connect and see each other. It's just akin to magic to me. And so within that kind of capsule, it's almost like, I don't really like the video game analogy. I used to use it a lot. I think it's much bigger than that now. But you have a soul thread that's happening of an energy particle that's been put here that has the encapsulation of, quote, who you are as a fragmentation of the whole that is a part of the whole, but also separate from the whole. And whatever that thread is what you can define. So that's kind of my answer on that from as far as I've deduced. I'm by no means like a quantum scientist or something. But my family is, so they study, particle collision and stuff like that.
No shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, 11 PhDs in theoretical physics.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Amongst how many people?
I mean, amongst 11, the 12. I'm the 12th, so I'm the only idiot over here.
No shit.
Yeah, 11. Yeah, so
I had no idea, man.
studying how stars explode. And so when you think of it that way, you go, wait a minute, there's a star that's exploding somewhere, and we're over here like, I hope I get a raise.
Yeah.
It just seems so like there's so much distortion with it, and we forget. Like, I think memory is such a big we forget. You were talking about this idea of play, of being a kid, right? And that's tough when you have a team, because if you're too fun with your team, all of a sudden they stop viewing you as an authority, etc.
Yeah.
So you have to find the right arena to be able to be that fun, creative, childlike wonder, which is, I think, really close to source. I think that energy of play and fun and enjoyment is where we kind of start.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're supposed to do. We're given so much for so little, like this life where we don't have a mortgage on life. I always use that as an analogy, and I think it's really important. You're just, here you go. Here's a gift. Like, you are alive now. And it's very, very important to remember that is what it really is, because it's very big. And if you neglect it or you disrespect it, I do believe that those are the threads that get kind of pushed down on the energetic spectrum, and you can get kind of lost in purgatory of these generations upon generations upon generations of people that like have not been able to wake up, and then Timothy Leary talked about this a lot, where you have layers of society, and through it all you have this pyramid ascension, right? So like from just a power dynamic, you have the companies that rule everything, and so I believe that above that there's a construct, there's a creationist, and there's a destructionist construct that's happening at the same time. You have this pendulum that's swinging, right? Of like, we are on Earth and we're sitting in this building. The fact that we were able to create buildings like this is absolutely monumental. I mean, reinforced concrete, you look at all these things that we've been able to do. And so I think a lot of pessimists would say like humans are stupid. Humans are very much not stupid. Humans are very, very, very smart. But we have not yet had the shift to understanding what we have. And what we have is an Earth. And we don't have much else. We have an Earth, we don't have much else. And so it's just like any relationship, how we treat this great gift that we've been given is what will define where we are in 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 years. And the more people that we have that listen to podcasts like this that start to understand, wait a minute, hold on. There's a principle, there's a core principle of evolution happening. And I truly believe this. There's a core evolutionary principle that's creating a separation right now between people who do understand and a vast majority that don't. And what that's going to do is create so much momentum for that smaller group that we're already seeing the distribution of wealth. So a lot of these principles of like, how do you quote make more money, is you understand the core principles of how reality works better, because then you can manipulate it better. And when you can manipulate it better and do it with an open heart, it actually rewards you. We've all had that where your friend's kind of having a hard time with something and you're like, bro, I got you, but you got to trust me. And they lean into you, right? They lean into you and they trust you, and you guide them through it, and they come out on the other side of it and they are a different person. It's no longer the same person, again, because of that question that you asked, like how much is determined. They're on a different thread now. They're on a different path, and it will continue. It's like a video game where you choose your character, and you pick your skills, and now you're like a certain thing. So yeah, I've always found that to be fascinating, because like eventually I'm going to die, right?
Yeah.
Like I'll be gone. And so that, I don't know what happens. Like that's cool. Like, hopefully I'm a particle that then goes back and delivers the information of like, hey, I sent you down there. And it's like coming back. Am I a puzzle piece that syncs back with what source wanted?
Yeah.
Or was it like, hey, you fucked up?
Oh shit.
Right. And I believe like if you sync back up, it goes nice. And then it gives you more power and sends you back, and maybe there's an alternate galaxy where we're like mushroom people or something, like, you know what I mean? Like we just have this idea, humans are so interesting because we are so good at analyzing and interpreting what we have seen, what we have experienced, but we have no context of things that we haven't. So like if you picture like Uganda, you can kind of picture it, but we've never been there.
Yeah, it's like a desert with some huts.
We think
maybe a jungle.
Right, but then if you picture your childhood home, there's energy there.
Yeah, memories.
Right. So that's memory against construct. We're actually able to mix and match, almost like a weird AI kind of thing, where we create this idea. I use this example a lot. Is like, should we invite Jimmy to the party? Right. So it's such a simple phrase, but what happens is in your brain you scan, should we? Okay, I can associate who we are. Invite Jimmy. Okay, what are all the Jimmys that we know? And what's the highest probability of the Jimmy that you're talking about?
Is it the same Jimmy that I'm thinking?
Is it the same Jimmy? But then what you do is really fascinating. You go through and you memorize. You go, what were my experiences with most highly probable Jimmy like? And what were they at parties? And then what you do is you switch from memory into forward construct. You visualize this hypothetical party with Jimmy at the party and without Jimmy at the party and your own emotional reaction to it. And then you go back to that and then you reverbalize your response. So like there's like 75 things that happen in something that's so simple. And we have these conversations every day with people and we're so unaware. So if we're talking like marketing, sales psychology, like being aware and again, understanding reality allows you to mold it better, and it's not in the complexities, it's in the simple details. So I've always found that to be kind of like a lot of fun to play with, even with my own psychology, because I'll be like, oh well, where am I being too small? Where's my blind spot?
That's
like,
always the biggest mind.
I clearly have them.
Yeah.
Where are they? I'd love to know.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm always and that's kind of what you said about Dave Grohl. I'm always trying to find it. Right. I'm like, oh, what's the next thing? You know. So I do music because music has this ambiguity to it. You think you're sitting down to create one thing, it comes out totally different.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah,
it just moves in a different direction.
Yeah,
I'm nowhere near as sophisticated a musician as you are, but a lot of times you sit down, you start with a riff on a guitar, and the thing you come out with at the other end is like, oh, it's completely different, but somehow manifested. With this also, like, do you think how much when you're making music, how much are you in control and you're building the exact thing that you want versus how much is it just given to you and you're just a manifestation of the idea?
I think that's a philosophical approach. I'm very much a manifestation of the idea type of artist.
Okay.
Like if it's steering me, I'll set like the BPM and I'll start to feel. And after a certain point, it's no longer me that's feeling. It's just, I'm just on this water park, and the challenge is actually to remove yourself from the process as much as possible. Because as soon as you start injecting, the process feels it. The process starts to understand and it goes, oh, you're trying to mold me into something. And sometimes it's compliant. Sometimes it goes, I understand. You want the bass or you want the kick drum bigger. I'll give you a big kick drum. Okay, here you go. Here's your big kick drum. Here's your, okay, I got it. But you always feel a pull. There's always a pull. And if you honor that pull, it's like in running. Okay, so I've been running a lot. And I'm not a runner at all. And there's this, when I first ran, I'd run like a mile and I'd just be exhausted. And I started like looking, I'm like, oh, how do I like run better? And so much of it is like leaning your body forward to where you always feel like you're kind of falling. And your feet are responsible for stabilizing. I thought that was kind of interesting with like business. It's like you always feel like you're falling forward, but your sales team and your lead gen and your operations is like keeping you going,
You try to keep breaking things when you're scaling. Yeah. That's basically all you want to do. Sorry to interrupt you, but I love that point.
Yeah.
It's like with everybody tries to scale in the safest, slowest fucking way possible because all pussies and they're scared. When in reality, what you literally willingly want to do is break. You want to put so much strain on your business, on all the systems underneath it, be it the delivery, the marketing, the sales team, the lead generation, the branding. You want to put so much strain on that the weakest part breaks, because that's the only way to actually identify weaknesses in your company. Now, two things are happening when you break. Number one, you make a ton of money in the process because as you're putting more strain on it, you're making more money. Number two, you identify the restraint, and then you have to be fearless. You have to lean in and trust that your feet, aka whatever underlying systems, company culture that you set up, are going to carry you.
Yeah.
And now you're going to fix that constraint, just like you're breaking a muscle in order to make it grow bigger. And now that constraint has been fixed, and what you keep scaling, you keep putting more and more pressure on it until the next weakness breaks.
Yeah.
And that is how you just become unfuckable with your company, and you're making a ton more money.
Yeah. And it's a blast. And it's just like with running, you'll feel your form be off. You'll be like, oh, my left knee, like it's not hitting right. And you'll go, okay, there's like one, area of the company. It's just like not where it needs to be. And you go and you focus there. And I think business and music are very similar because there is, again, that intuitive pull of it's giving you the information. It's saying, hello, do the thing, and it's just a matter of being smart enough to go and both, remove your ego from the process to do the thing, but also have enough ego to know and have confidence in yourself that you can. Because, we can talk a lot about this spiritual stuff, but I do think there's so much duality there where I see people that they just don't believe. They just don't believe in themselves. And it's like, and I think what you said is it just has so much truth to it. Why don't you just try breaking yourself? Like try breaking yourself over, whether that's, lifting or jujitsu or running or business, and see how well you do. And I think a lot of people would be shocked at how well they do when they truly break, because it removes the distractions. You can no longer sit there and scroll on TikTok. You don't have the option to. No, because you've committed now to yourself. And it's something that you've been just since the very first day I met you, you've been fantastic at this, of going and saying, I will put myself under this consistent pressure and I will keep that weight, and I will gradually increase that weight, just like in the gym. But I definitely saw the shift with you where like you started having fun. And I think the gym's a great example, right? Where like in the beginning you're like, oh, I don't want to go. Like, I can't wait to get in the gym. Like, oh, I hope I live like better,
Yeah.
Then you start having fun with it. And then you become one of these weird people where, we're talking about like socially and hanging out with entrepreneurs, which is definitely my favorite. But I will say, I've started enjoying spending time with people that like got nothing going on. Like it's been like actually in a weird way, like a big relief to just be with someone and they're like maybe a college student or something, or, they're just, because they can't relate to me at all on what I got going on. But that's not the point. It's almost like watching Family Guy or something. Like you're like, man, your life is so simple. And it's just like, I'm just going to watch this for a sec. Hold on. You know what I'm talking about? Like people that dress, like a really stupid song comes on in the club and they're just like, it's just like makes their day. Yeah. They're just, in a way, like they're so present. Like, who else figured this shit out? Dogs. Like, I'm sorry. Like, what I'm saying? Like a little puppy is just like, he's like, oh my God, and the tail's wagging. That puppy's figured it out. Yeah. Like, and we make it so complicated and we just forget that we're just these bleep bloop humans on this big rock. The whole thing's crazy.
We're drinking our own Kool-Aid so much. We're taking everything so fucking seriously. And then they're like, shut the fuck up. You're just a fucking monkey with no hair. That's all you are. Because we're running around. I make this money. Oh, look at my golden watch. Oh. This is a golden watch, everybody. Yeah. Behold my golden watch. So I have more employees than you have. My chest muscles are developed. Look at them. And then it's like, no, okay, shut the fuck up, okay? Yeah. You're a fucking monkey with no hair, okay? Yeah. If I was an alien, I'm looking down on the earth, right? It's like you looking at an ant hive, okay? Is it called an ant hive or an ant, whatever?
Yeah, a colony, I guess.
Yeah, and you look and say, look at him go. Yeah. Look at this little ant. There's one ant that runs that certain ant. Look at it, let's keep like that. That's what you are. That's what I am. That's what everybody is. Yeah. Okay. So there is value in like not fucking, because you gotta have ego to a degree. You gotta take yourself super seriously when you're building business, but then also you gotta be like, okay, I'm just a fucking idiot. Okay. When I sweat, I smell bad. I am hungry. I become grumpy in the morning. If my bed isn't at exact 22 degrees Celsius, I don't sleep well. I sometimes cry when I saw the sad movie or the YouTube video. And it's like, and then, you're like, okay, stop taking yourselves too seriously. You're not as cool as you think you are. And that's totally fucking fine. And that humility, that drinking the humble tea, it really helps you reset. And like you said, pets really help with that. We have a neighbor cat that we often take care of, and you just like sometimes you just grind for like 3-4 hours, and then you like look over to the cat and it's like just staring against the wall. You're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Or it's looking at you like, you peasant.
Yeah, exactly. Let's say you all arrogant. Look at you advanced hominoid. Look at your little stress. Oh, look at me, I'm a human. I'm stressed because of taxes and I have depression. Yeah. Meanwhile, I just lick my balls to clean myself.
Yeah.
That's what cats do. And you look at it and you're like, that motherfucker knows something.
Yeah, and there's something going on.
Motherfucker.
Yo, cats are creepy, bro.
Yeah.
Cats are
dogs too. Like, you're like, yeah, it just looks at you and you just say the word like, go for a walk, and it gets all excited. It's like, and you're like, motherfucker, you know some shit that I don't. So it's like our biggest strength, our intellect, and it's our biggest fucking weakness. Yeah, because we think we are special, but we're not as special as we think we are.
Maybe we're more special.
Maybe
we're, yeah, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's this Inception thing.
Pure mind, but that really helps. It's weird. I call this like the alien frame. Every time I'm taking myself too seriously, like so and so betrayed me, or like this is an asshole who said that. I'm like, if I was an alien, I would look down and be like, look at this stupid monkey. This fucking monkey thinks he's important. Look at him go. Look at me all bitter about things. I think that helps, as weird as it fucking sounds. And you know who else is really good at that? It's my girlfriend. Like, my girlfriend is such a counterbalance to me.
Yeah.
Like, I am the and my girlfriend is just like, shut up. Let's go to sauna. She's faded as shit. All she wants to do is go to sauna.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn it. But the thing, and I am there. She's like, nah. Yeah. Come on, let's jump in water. And I'm like, I am there. I am serious. And she's like, come on, babe.
Yeah. It's that control, right? You're like trying to contain this thing that's not meant to be contained at all.
Tries to stay alive.
Yeah.
The ego is like, no, I am in control. And the world is like, nah. It's like, you're not. You're like a little puppy that is barking. That's all you do. You're barking at the fucking tree.
Yeah.
No, I am the button. No, you just go away. All right.
But there's a shift, and this shift in the zone that you and I are both always looking for. It's not a control zone. It's a sync zone. It's when what you want to do is exactly what the universe wants you to do.
Oh.
And then you're in sync. And that's where the power is. And sometimes you're trying to create that through force. You're like, no, universe, go here. And it's like, I'm not going to. I'm going to, just like an ocean wave, I'm going to shift you over here. And you can totally not like it, or you can love it. And that's the biggest thing for people to take away, is to start enjoying your losses. Like whatever L's you're taking right now, take a moment and find the gratitude in those, because that's when you really truly become indestructible. Because shit happens. Shit happens with family. Shit happens with your own psychology. Like stuff. Life can be hard. I think people will say like, oh, life's not hard. No, I think like if you were, in war or something, like that would be very hard. Like I've never experienced, but I could see how that could be very, 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 very difficult, right? Yeah. So I think you do have to respect that, and then find a small seed of joy that it becomes the sprout that then is the fruits of your character, that then allows you to define things differently. And even if we think about like the male female dynamic of the man is what? Like the man is the seed, right? We plant the seed. And the woman is what? She is fertile, right? There's that terminology. The woman is fertile. Well, what else is fertile? The earth, right? With soil that is full of nutrients is also fertile. So there's these kind of concepts that repeat in the world that, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are like, how can I find like my perfect partner, right? Like romantically. Well, are you honoring the nutrient profile, so to speak, of what it takes to have like fertility in your life? As a man, are you holding space for the vulnerability that fertility requires?
Yes.
Right. And so that's also an interesting kind of thread where throughout, our civilization as a human race, we've had these anchors to, like, you had the warrior kings, right? And then you had, the czars. And so it was to conquer was the dominant force.
Yeah.
And we still have that. And now business is the kind of the arena of conquering. So that's how we get to, like, puff ourselves up and do things. But at the same time, there's something else going on where there's a transition into unity that's happening where, and we're already seeing this with, like, masculine, feminine polarity. And I think where we're going to land is somewhere really, really beautiful, because what we're going to develop through this next season is a culture of men who want to be the best possible men for themselves and for women. And we will also create a separation in women who are able or not able to not just acknowledge and understand what's happening and what it takes to be that type of man, but also to honor it, and vice versa, for men to be able to understand what a really in alignment type of partner is for them when they're at that level, and to hold space and to create that safety. So I think we're finally now planting these seeds through creating all these different things that, you and I have talked about ad nauseum, right? Of the we'll call it the cultural spears that everybody's trying to throw with the judgments and all sorts of directions, right? This total chaos. Through that, there's a discernment that's happening. Obviously, like Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, you have these pools of philosophical thought. Like, we are almost creating stoicism again. Like, we're reinventing what it means to be stoic in the modern era with all this technology and this instant connection, because we've never had that. Like, if you look back, like, when was the internet's not that old. Like, the internet is super recent.
It's like, what, 2000?
Our brains,
something like that.
Our brains haven't adapted. And so you were talking about this anchor to, like, seeing, the car and the party. I do think there's a really cool component of social media where you can see, like, what's possible. And wow, you were able to really create that. But there's also this distortion field where you start to question your place in the world, because everything looks cooler, everything's brighter, everyone's sexier. And so you start to question, like, whether or not you belong. So that's why I was really highlighting earlier, finding the path to belonging really is the first step to building a business. And often, I'm sure you'll resonate with this, a part of that belonging is the business. Through your business, you've sort of found a path to a new paradigm of existence, and that becomes an anchor to you belonging. And I think that's really cool. So anyone who's maybe, like, on the fence, view it as like a self-discovery exercise almost.
It is.
Yeah.
It's self-development on steroids, like we always say.
Yeah.
Let's talk about today's sponsor for this episode, who is nobody. I don't have sponsors. Maybe I'll get sponsors at some point if I really find a product that I myself use and I really believe in, and one that pays me a lot of money, that is kind of making it worth it. But apart from that, the reason why I'm having this quick interlude is because I want to ask you to drop a like, drop a subscribe if you watch this on YouTube. If you listen to this on Spotify or Apple iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. Why? Because that really helps out this wonderful podcast. I've had the honor to talk to so many insanely amazing people already, but when you like, when you comment, when you rate us 5 stars, it grows the channel, and most importantly, it allows me to keep dropping value stuff for free for you. So that's basically all I'm asking for you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And let's get back into the episode.
Your view on things, specifically the last couple of minutes now, I've talked to a lot of people over the last weeks. Your view on things is by far the most optimistic, positive. You're like, we're just about to hit the balance and everything will be beautiful. Everybody else said, like, it's going down, the world's going down to shit. What's your thought process? What do you base that optimism on?
How much of it is hope
versus actual knowing?
Oh, I think the anchors are quite good for actual knowing. I think humans are inherently self-serving. And like you said, with any system, I think the self-serving capitalistic system has a shelf life. I think we're right in the swing of it. We're right about to go into the Super Bowl of how much we can achieve in quotes. So the short term, I wouldn't say is quite as optimistic. I'd say the short term definitely has some colors on it, with everything that's going on in the world. But we are creating a new order through this. We are definitely creating a new order with new rules, with new principles, with new regulations that establish a new level of control and containment, because now we see the difference. It's like if you have someone who's an alcoholic, you don't let them near a bar. If you have someone who it's like 300 pounds, like the guy from Comedy, like get him out of the donut shop, like move them away from the donut shop. So the waters are separating, and what I mean by that is we're gonna have a ton of war, and we're gonna have a ton of resource battles.
Damn, bro.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Our population is going to keep climbing because humans can't stop, getting it on, getting frisky. We're going to eventually hit a resource threshold, and we're going to behave about the way that you would expect a massive mob of people to behave when the resources that are necessary for life are not available. You've traveled a significant amount. You see the vast disparity. You go to Asia, you go to India, you go to even Mexico. The vast disparity in income and lifestyle. So you already have this separation, and the trend is that it's rolling downhill. Like the boulder's rolling downhill. I don't mean that in a way that it's going to a negative place. It's the trajectory of the human initiative. We've said it pretty clearly. We're going to fight with each other, and the strongest will win, and we will bully everybody else out. And we will do that for as long as we're able to. And that in itself is a chapter. And it's remembering that in itself is a chapter. Because eventually, what happens is we run out of clean drinking water. And then we have to wonder what we do. Because I don't know if you've ever been thirsty for more than a day when you can't get water. It is a really unpleasant feeling. Right. And we already see that again, like Indonesia, Bali is a great example. The water is atrocious there. There's a ton of disease, etc. So, and through that, the systems that we've created will break. They will collapse. They will break. And through that breaking, there will be a new installation of power, and it will be quite forceful, I believe. Mm-hmm. And it will just say, hey, if you pollute, we kick you out. No, like we kick you off of Earth. Period. And there's not going to be a corporate entity or anything that will be able to fight that, and will reinforce that militarily.
But the problem is with that, we already see that. We already see carbon tax. We already see corporations or politicians shilling, quote unquote, carbon neutral corporations that aren't actually carbon neutral. Sure. Or the carbon tax actually not being used to offset carbon. It's just yet another opportunistic power grab by whatever party's in charge. I'm not going to make this a left versus right thing, but you see what I'm saying? The problem is we're like, nobody wants the fucking Earth to die, okay? Everybody loves nature. Like the average regular fucking person is like, oh, should we save the Amazon? Oh, yeah, fuck yeah. Should we keep plastic out of our oceans? Oh, fuck yeah. The average person agrees with that. But now the problem is opportunistic power-hungry politicians come in and they're like, yeah, people want the oceans to be plastic-free. So you know what? Let me make some shit up. To tax people, like you said, to punish people who are polluting that, hey, I'm making some money myself as well. And I think that's the main challenge we need to figure out collectively as humans. And I don't think, to challenge you on that, I don't think that an authoritarian approach is going to be correct. We're going to punish you if you pollute. I think what we need to do is we need to go deeper to the individual and have the individual wake up in terms of like, hey, if you run a company, I understand that you're going to have whatever, 10% more profit if you just landfill your plastic bottles. But if you find an alternative where the plastic dissolves by itself, it's good for nature. So I think we need to go to the individual level and teach them a certain degree of compassion needs to be there, and it needs to be the greed part needs to be dialed down a bit. Dial up compassion, dial up long-term thinking, and dial down greed a little bit. And the only way I know, I personally have experience for that to work is meditation, spirituality, call it religion if you want to. I don't care.
Sure.
Religion, spirituality, whatever. But I don't think just govern in and be like, fuck you, you're going to be punished is going to work.
I think it takes both, because you and I, I'm not going to name any names, but we know some individuals that no amount of rehabilitation would shift their perspective. And if you know what I'm saying. So I'm in full agreement. Again, Timothy Leary in the 70s had the same approach.
Yeah.
Right. And we saw the hippie movement get only so far.
Yeah.
And this is why I kind of mentioned this thread. We're very good at thinking, 100, 200, 300 years. We're not so good at thinking 1,500, 3,000 years. And I'm talking about 1,500, 3,000 years. Eventually, the system will hit such a boiling point that the systems will break, and there will be no ability to stabilize the system without some of these things being implemented. Now, the alternative is we go full dystopian cyberpunk, which is also a very high probability, which is also optimistic, because then we could shoot lasers out of our eyes. Okay, that's the flip side. I had on my ayahuasca journey, I went back in time and then I went forward in time, and the vision was majestic. So all of these plastics that we have, we use them for hydroponics. We use them to reinforce the plant life. We had gardens growing up the side of all of our buildings. We had a community structure where we had people who were compensated to take care and pick heirloom tomatoes. We have all of the necessary resources within the container that we have. And that's why I am so optimistic. I think, again, the short term, maybe not so much, but I do genuinely believe that there is a requirement. And I know this sounds like kind of a crazy theory. Yes, you have to have the perspective shifts. Yes, you have the indoctrination. Yes, hopefully people go and find it within themselves to do good and to do right. Yes, I hope so. I also believe that people that don't need to be systematically eliminated. And I don't mean that in a crazy way. It's just they need to be removed from power. They don't need to be, not like anything crazy. They need to be put where, put them in on like a game show or something. like put them on like, put them on BattleBots, like have them build BattleBots. Like if you're a psycho, narcissist, sociopath, like your role in society now, like you can no longer build companies.
But the question is,
you can only build BattleBots.
You can only play World of Warcraft. I get it. And that sounds like a good idea, but who decides that? So now you got a government body. Now that you have a governing body, there will be opportunists who are like, you know what? Hey, you, Mr. Governing Body, I'll give you a couple billion.
Well, so hopefully you're not in a body. So hopefully the governing body is the people that you're talking about that are conscious. And look at how frustrated
everybody can be bought. You know what I mean?
I don't believe that.
Okay, if you can't buy them, what if I'm like, okay, hey, Mr. Governing Body, you're super spiritual. I can never buy you with money, but you know what? I have your kids, and I'm gonna slice their throat. But
see if the governing body is militarily backed, and we've never had that. We've never had where we have corporate and military and eco on the same side, and that's where we've made the big mistake. Is we've always had them as conflicting forces. They're actually not, and the same with tech. So the four forces are what I just mentioned, right? You have military, you have political, you have economical, and then you have technology. And we've always had it where, and this is the typical like sci-fi thread where technology takes over humanity and destroys everything, right? Terminator.
Yeah.
We've never thought through biotech to a level where biotech plus economic incentives reinforced with a militaristic, politically backed body to establish that true representation of society as we want it to be. And you know what that is? It's delusional utopianism, actually, in a way, where this idea that you can create a perfect island where everything's perfect. We've already seen that doesn't work. So there's been a couple systems that we've seen that don't work, right? We've seen communism doesn't work. Socialism, same thing. We've seen utopianism doesn't work. We've seen capitalism does work. We've seen capitalism does work to a degree. So the question is, what is the next system that's going to evolve? And at least the way that I've always kind of viewed it is what's the maximization of capitalism? Like where do you see, like fast forward 3,000 years, where do you see capitalism being from your vantage point?
That's a good question, because at the core essence of capitalism, it's creating win-win, right? You pay me and I create stuff and you can buy that, and then with these things, you can create more and everybody wins. That's the core idea. But the problem is the core idea, there's always bad fruits, so to speak, that will dilute the core idea and try to find loopholes where they can get a disproportionate amount back.
Where they win-lose. Yeah,
exactly. Where it's more like win-lose. So that's a problem. Like, I think in essence, capitalism is the perfect idea, but because we humans are so flawed, because we're scared, because we're greedy from that fear that arises, greed arises from fear, and you keep spinning that idea further. And I notice it myself. It's like you start making compromises, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, well, whatever. Random example. I got this employee in my team. Just a random example, right? I got this employee in my team. They're whatever, like a 6 out of 10. If I put a lot of work into that person, I can turn them in an 8 out of 10. Now I could make that person more money. Now this person's kids will have a better lifestyle. Now this person's kid are happy, and the person's happy, and so on and so forth. Sounds like a perfect idea, right? Beautiful. But here's this other thing. I have this person that applied for the same position, and they are already an 8. So, sure, if I'm a good person, I'm going to teach the first employee to become an 8 from a 6, right?
Yep.
But now I'm like, okay, but if I put time and energy into that person that I could otherwise use to keep my company, to grow my company further. So now I'm actually doing a disservice to others, clients of mine. I'm doing a disservice to myself. I'm doing a disservice to my children. So now you spin that idea further and you're like, okay, now you're fucked. It's like that idea of the train, you either kill one person to save 4.
Like the game theory.
The game theory, exactly.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, well, fuck.
Yep.
So it's difficult.
Yeah.
Because we are inherently flawed, because we're insecure, we're greedy, we're scared. We have no fucking clue what the fuck we're doing. And also a lot of times we're missing the long-term vision because we don't know what the repercussions are going to be of the one small decisions I'm making right now.
Yep.
So that's why I'm saying I don't know. I think the ultimate change always needs to come at an individual and collective level. If we can raise this sounds so stupid woo-woo. I get it. Okay, this sounds really, but if we can raise our collective consciousness, our vibration higher, that's, in my opinion, the only solution. Now, we see that already. 500 years ago, right? Middle-age Europe, right? You go to a bar, some motherfucker looks at you badly, you would kill that person. Yeah. Like death and rape
with like
and
an axe.
like the craziest physical violence was very, very normal back then. Same with things like hygiene. Like it was so medical. Like, it was so normal to just kill a motherfucker, right? Or like rape and take things away. They would literally just be like the Crusades. Like, oh, your religion is different. You know what? I'm going to kill you. Very crazy. We still have death and war now, but much, much less.
So that's part of why I'm so optimistic. Otherwise, the trending, right?
The trend is there. So we have grown collectively that if you ask the average person, hey, is it okay to kill your neighbor when they're humiliating you, the average person would say, what? No. Like, okay, maybe yell at them, maybe sue them, but physical violence? No. Physical violence is not okay. If you ask the average person.
Unless you're Diddy.
I said, exactly. Oh, boy. But the thing is, like, so if you look at that growth on a soul level, of a consciousness level, and you keep spinning that idea further, maybe, I hope so, like you said yourself, the tendency, the momentum is there to grow beyond that. And maybe in, 100 years, people are like, you know what? It is not okay to be greedy. You know what? It is not okay to make an extra 10% profit, but fuck up our nature. Yeah. So maybe the collective consciousness is moving in the right direction.
Well, and that's what I believe. I believe that separation
that's beautiful.
Is happening. And, I think the socialist hippie movement got it wrong. They wanted to absolve money. And that was just the wrong way of thinking about it. Why would you want to do that? We've seen that doesn't work. But what if the incentives were shifted? See, the problem is right now, like, let's say there's like a Red Bull can in the lake here, right? There's zero incentive for me to go and pick up that Red Bull can.
Yeah.
What if there was?
Like what, for example?
What if every...
sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, sure.
There is already an incentive. I don't know about the US, but like I get like 25 cents if I recycle this fucking can.
Sure, but it's not proportionate to what we need. So that's what I believe. I don't believe we're that far off. I believe the incentive structure, once you shift it and you organize it, especially if it's organized, we are quite smart. And I believe in humanity and our smartness. I think we have a subset of the population that's smart enough to solve these problems. And I don't think we need the majority of the population to be smart enough to solve these problems. We just need the subset to be smart enough, the people that make the tech to be able to do this, and the people that are the governing bodies. So I do believe that there's a separation in who is eventually going to be in power. I don't think we're going to see it in our lifetime. I think it's 1,500 to 3,000 years out where eventually we will have a government that essentially says, no, the number one priority of us existing is homeostasis with Earth, because we haven't found a way to migrate to another planet, and we definitely haven't found a way to leave the current ecosystem that we have, because there's a giant freezing fucking belt that we can't get through. So that needs to be number one objective at all costs, any costs, and anything that goes against that is a threat to humanity and will be quite violently suppressed, because we've seen when there's no protection, what happens, like you mentioned, like the Genghis Khan, right? You just come in and that was the only way to protect. And we've never really had that. It's always been a hippie movement all about peace and love, and I'm all for it. But we've seen that gets abused, right? Even the hippie movement was monetized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They took it, they monetized the crap out of it. Like, look at it, right? So you have to have eventually some sort of reinforcing structure that is uncorruptible. How do you create that uncorruptible structure? I don't know. I'm a human, right? Yeah. So I clearly have flaws, but my belief is that it's doable. And I think that belief in itself is enough to create, again, that quantum thread where humanity finds itself 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years from now. We wake up and we look around on this beautiful earth. There's more nature than there's ever been. Species are coming back and thriving. Our cities are connected with birds flying through. Like,
I love that idea.
Like it's not just doable, it's reality on a thread. We just have to pick it. And I think it's so beautiful. And you know, how cool would it be if, like, with this building that we're in, it had a garden, and someone in the building was responsible for tending this garden. It was like, hey, fresh fruits and vegetables, like
pick it up and
heirloom, come pick it up, you know, and we contribute some way. Like, there is there's an artist, Hunter Twasser. I have his book, and he did this art of this building that has, and I'll show you after, it has like a hydroponic system inside of the actual building. And they're trying this in Europe. You know, if you look at these rooftops, why do these rooftops not have gardens?
Yeah.
Why do they? I don't see a good reason for it.
It's a good point. Because there's sun, there's precipitation.
You got to control the roots so the roots don't affect your
Sure. But also, like, it creates jobs. It actually produces things. So that's the book now of the guy.
The book. So check this out.
Oh.
So he has like a little diagram, and obviously this is like, you know, wishful thinking artist. But I think it's cool. He has this thing called what is it, like a tree tenant?
Yeah.
You see that? So every just like you have like a house plant, but you have like a tree tenant, and the tree tenant is like a functioning member of society. And that's a tree, right? And you know, this helps with oxygen. This helps with a lot of things. So and with hydroponics, where they are, like, it's so easy to upkeep plants and such. You know, we figured that out. Look at where our agriculture is advanced.
Yeah, true.
To great heights. So, I'm quite optimistic on humans. You know, he's got a bunch of these, and he's got some that are like more of like a city kind of scape. But you know, that brings up some interesting questions of, like, if every building had to have like you know, a garden with a quotient of it.
Yeah.
That offset, you know, some of the pollution, and so there's ways. If there were no ways, like some of his architecture stuff's really interesting, right?
You gotta, the way I often think about concepts like this as well, and I'm by no means as much of an expert as this guy who wrote an entire book about it. You gotta make it A, cool, and B, profitable. I think these are like the two things you need to hit. You know who did that very well? Boyan Slat, the guy of Ocean Cleanup, I think. It is Ocean Cleanup. So what they did is, you know, they have this whole like ocean cleanup system to clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and they also then created the interceptors, and they have a ton of them. I think they got like 10 or 20 of them already, all around the world in the biggest polluting rivers.
They did the big net sweep, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
But the coolest thing is, like, they're like, okay, you know what? Fuck the clean. I mean, they still do the cleanup of the ocean, but they're like, you know what we should do instead? We should actually make sure that not more plastic flows in.
Mm-hmm.
And then they found out that I think 90% of the pollution comes from like 7 rivers all around the world, and they're like South America, Southeast Asia. So they went there and they built these like interceptors that basically don't disrupt the entire flow of the river, but they're grabbing all the plastic out and they're just putting it in the recycle right away. And what they do is they made it cool, meaning they're not just a bunch of fucking hippies that are like the earth, everybody free your mind. No, they're like, hey, we're building this corporation, we're building this social media hype around it, we're cool people, we're going on the Joe Rogan podcast, we are not these like crazy left-wing liberals, we're just like quote-unquote normal, balanced people who just don't want to fucking pollute the oceans, which is reflecting of the average person. The average person isn't a militant vegan. The average person is like, I want to be there for my family, I want to have fun, I want to drink my soft drinks, and no, I do not want to fuck up the earth. That's like roughly the average person. So they made it cool. And then they were like, okay, we need to figure out a way to make it profitable. And the way they did that is, that's not 100%, 100% really thought through yet, but I think they're on the right path.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is you can buy sunglasses that are made from the plastic that they're fishing out.
Yeah.
And they're not just shitty, cheap, like $20 fucking glass. They made them like premium glasses. They're like $300.
Good.
There's a QR code on them. Like, I don't know how well that works. I don't know how real that is. This is not me advocating for the company, but looking from the outside.
But it is a start. Like,
exactly.
At least they went out and they did something.
Exactly. And they're ticking off these 2 boxes. They made it cool and they made it fucking profitable, at least to my knowledge. And I think if you can do that with any sort of concept, with any sort of living concept, recycling concept and whatnot, I think then you win.
Yeah, and you know, you have to back it with real systems. Like the individual, yeah, you can educate, but I look at my own behavior, and like we're sitting here, we have a can of Celsius, right? So that can of Celsius is going to go in the trash. We'll have I'll have a can of or a bottle of Essentia that I'll drink when I go to the gym. So clearly, like my profile, my trash profile is probably that of like 2 or 3 families in any other country, right? And I'm quite conscious, but again, humans are just inherently fickle and can't quite help themselves when they're given. It's like if you have the easier path, you're just gonna kind of take it. So taking that and doing the education and the consciousness work, absolutely critical. But also again, combining that with a fail-proof system, just like you would in a business, right? You'd want to have a fulfillment system that doesn't fail, that doesn't trip up. Same thing. We need systems for our planet to sustain. And you know, you have this duality where it's like there's not really a problem, blah, blah, blah. And I honestly don't know. I don't know. I am not like an expert. I don't know what's going on with the polar ice caps. I haven't gone up there.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe it's terrible. Maybe it's amazing. And I think that's the part that actually scares me, is the fact that we have so much information distortion.
Mm-hmm.
Like if anything's going to get us, it's our own delusion. I think that could get us really easily. You could be like, it's fine, and then it's too late, and then it's just screwed, right? So we have to have some sort of like respect towards the system that we've built, and try and create some fail safes, create some offsets to this. And once we combine that with capitalistic incentives, I think we're going to thrive. Like it's the thing. It's you ever have that where you have like a mentoring student or something, and you're just telling them what to do, and they're like so stuck in their ways, they just don't seem to want to do it.
Yeah.
And you tell them that for like a year.
Yeah.
And then like they leave the program, and then 6 months later they message you like, I did the thing. My life is the best it's ever been. Thank you. I don't know why I didn't do it when I was in the program. So, you know what I mean? Or like they do it at the end. Like they're just stubborn, right? And so I think it's the same thing. We don't really know how good it can be. I think a good example of this is like traffic. Like we have this I-35 freeway here, and there's traffic, and there doesn't have to be, right? We know we could build a train that goes on the side of all the freeways, and it's solar powered and eco-friendly. Like we're just kind of lazy, right? So I think while we're allowed to be lazy, and while we have the luxury, let's call it what it is, the luxury to be lazy, we'll be lazy, but eventually we'll hit a point where we can no longer be lazy, and then we'll be forced to do something. And I'm just hoping that we have the right people on the right seats to be able to mobilize quickly, because the average person will not be able to do anything, right? And I mean, we already see that. Like, you know, look at India. It's the average person there can't do anything if they wanted to. They just don't have the resources. And the average person in America actually does have the resources. Same with a lot of other European countries, etc. So Yeah, we'll see. But my prediction is 1,500 to 3,000 years, we hit a resource threshold, then we get our shit together, really get our shit together, and then things from there look a lot better. And the fact that we're even having these conversations highlights how much uncertainty there is. And like, why did we create this? Think about it. When there was less population, like, did we have uncertainty? Like, there's not going to be enough rabbits. No, there's too many rabbits, right? Or like, so we went from having this massive abundance, this overabundance, to now we've kind of gobbled it up. And people will be like, the rainforests. I don't know if you've flown over Mexico recently. There's a lot of jungle. Like, I'm sorry, like, there's a lot of jungle. Like, you flew from Europe, like, that flight's pretty long. That's all ocean. So it's a lot of ocean, right? So I don't think things are really as bad. I think the microbiome situation maybe could be worse because we don't really have visibility on it. But my belief is humans are inherently selfish and self-centered enough to want to protect themselves and like survive. So I think when we don't have the luxury of like kind of dicking around and throwing plastic everywhere, like eventually that'll just be like, I can't believe we used to do that.
Yeah.
I
hope so.
Yeah.
Just like we said, I can't believe we used to just smash this guy's head in just because he said something bad. I hope so. That's again, like, I oscillate on a fucking daily basis between we're so fucked and like, no, we got this, we're smart. Depends on the individual. And I love the fact that you said like we're having the conversation. That's already pretty fucking good.
Yeah,
right. It's like you and I. We're the two most important people on earth.
Let's go.
No,
well, just kidding. It's gonna activate people, right? It's gonna activate. I
certainly hope so. You bought a place in Mexico.
Yeah,
the other day. When was that? When did you buy it? Or just recently, or last year?
End of last year. Yeah.
How much did you pay? $700K. What is
like
it?
700. Yeah.
Did you buy that in cash?
Mostly.
Nice.
Yeah, mostly cash.
That's an apartment like this.
It's a 3-bedroom and it's got a rooftop pool. So it's kind of separated. It has 2 bedrooms on one floor with a kitchen, beautiful patio, and then it has a floor above it that's just a single room with a pool next to it. And we have this ATV that I also bought. It's like a 4-wheel off-road vehicle because I'm a child.
So so that's a house or an apartment?
It's an apartment. It's like a villa, but there's only like 6 units in the.
You drive an ATV separate from the apartment, or you drive it on the rooftop?
No, it's like separate. Like we park it downstairs.
Okay.
But it's just, I think, look, I didn't grow up with that much money, right? So I've always had this vision of like, okay, what the fuck do rich people do? Like, rich people definitely have 2 homes, right? They're like, darling, would you like to go to the thing, like.
People are all British too.
Yeah, like,
no matter where you're from, do you got a British accent?
Like, it's time to go to the south of France.
Alfred, prepare the limousine.
Right. It's like the Monaco vibe, right? So, like, well, they definitely have like an option to like pick up and go somewhere that's not like an Airbnb. So that's been one of those things that I've kind of just had as like a preconceived notion of like, oh, you have a second home that is optional to exist in if you want to, or if there's like cold in one home and you go to, like, it's been like this geo-hacking thing, where it's like the seasons, right?
Yeah.
So and I've always kind of had a romantic involvement with Mexico. I think Mexico was very reminds me of Russia a lot. It's like, it's just like, just no one cares. Like, it's just stuff is broken and like, and it's just normal, and they've just accepted that that's what it is. But it's also a very romantic culture. In English, our objects don't have polarity. There's no masculine, feminine for like a pen, right? Or a phone. But in Russian there is, and in Spanish there is.
German there is.
Yeah, and I've always loved that. It's much more romantic, kind of evocative language, and there's something to this idea of, waking up and booking a flight and landing and being in Mexico by the beach in your own home, not in a rental or a hotel or something, but in your other home, and there's something kind of unique about that, and understanding that you still have a place in the States too that's quite stable. So yeah, it's just always been like kind of a romantic notion for me.
Beautiful, man. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like you've been crushing it, especially the last couple of years. Because I've also been in touch with you over the last years. You've been on the podcast the most out of everyone. This is the third podcast we had, right? So yeah, super funny, man. GG on that. And you've always been crushing it. You always got better. You got insane clients. Like you're working with some really, really, really high level clients.
Yeah.
Are you ever gonna buy a farm or anything in those lines?
So I don't know if like farm is
Or
my
a ranch or something?
So I always thought it'd be cool, to do like a ranch in Texas. Yeah. So I'm here in Austin, and so I definitely have this kind of John Wick-esque kind of vision for home base. And home base would have a helipad so that you could plant a helicopter there, and then it would have like an armory.
Oh fuck yeah! All right,
like full,
like in the basement floor, you press a touch screen, and it's a.
So the ultimate dream, and I'm just not quite there yet, would be to have a mountain. So okay, you ever have a recurring dream? So this is my recurring dream. My recurring dream is a zombie apocalypse happens.
Oh,
and that I have
was it cool, by the way?
It'd be so
totally cool,
so sick. Yeah. And I have this mountain, and the mountain, you have to drive underneath the mountain to get into the only way you can tell that there's anything in the mountain, there's just this one window.
Oh shit!
This one big window.
Yeah.
It's and it's closed. It's bulletproof glass.
Yeah.
So you have to drive underneath the mountain, and then you go into this bunker.
Sick.
And then it's a self-contained,
Love that idea.
53-room, just mega mansion in this mountain, and you go
livestock inside,
livestock, just a whole ecosystem, and then you're just up there, and you're on this big open veranda that's closed, and you're just overlooking the valley. And you have missile launchers in case anybody but it's all enclosed, so you can't even get in there.
Yeah.
And then you have a train system underground, so you can still get to all the major cities. You can still go all the way to the West Coast and all the way to New York and all the way to Florida on an underground personal train with special stops that are hidden in the gas station in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, you press a button,
it transforms
again.
Yeah, bro. I've built a phone booth.
You dial it
in, and then it's transformed. And there's a whole a subway station underneath, and the subway station is its own little mini bunker. So that's been my recurring dream, because I'm so optimistic.
It's funny that you say that. Literally, I'm not saying this specifically. This whole idea of a mountain with a bunker inside, it wasn't a recurring dream of mine, but it's a recurring thought. Because I'm thinking exactly the same. I'm like, okay, mountain, you'll be the safest. Because you're shielded naturally from radioactivity.
Yep.
Mobs or whatever crazy shit can't come in. If there's flooding, can't come in. If there's solar flares, I'm not 100% sure, but I think because you're in a mountain, the solar flares don't fry your chips and your electricity that you have.
At least as bad, yeah. Especially if you go down underneath the mountain.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, and you have an ecosystem that propels itself. Here's what I think. Okay, I would put a nuclear reactor in it to create my electricity, because those are unfuckable. Those are really unfuckable, right? Then livestock, UV lights that grow all the plants. A ton of water,
jacuzzi.
Yeah, jacuzzi has gotta live a little, the essentials. And
water slide.
Water slide, yeah. And then live there with 2,000 people or 100 people, a bunch of engineers, bunch of doctors, teachers, psychologists, yada yada yada, just the coolest of the coolest people, your family, your best friends, and just build a society like that, and have a huge underground cinema. You watch all the sick movies, and you just download the database of the humanity on
and all this areas, all the except profiles of every plant.
Yeah, all the livestock and shit, and
you have a cloning machine,
a cloning
new chicken.
You get all the PlayStations, PS1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A PC, graphics card. Hell, just build your own factory so they continuously make new games, right? A game development studio.
That'd be great.
Just get Hideo Kojima to live with you so he keeps making games.
Well, that's actually how you fund it, is you brainwash the entire rest of the audience into Ready Player One, and that's how you fund the whole thing. Yeah, and this is all
so either that,
super doable.
Either that, I can't remember who I asked, and they're like, if it comes out, I think it was Robin Bauman, our CMO. He's like, nah, if it really comes that far, fuck it, I'll just die. It's not worth the effort you put in, you know? I was like, yeah, whatever.
Totally not.
Had a good life.
If I would, look, if it got that Wild West, I would for sure be like the supervillain who has a robot army. I would do robot army 100%.
You know what I would get? Robot army I respect. I think that's a cool idea. I would get a war rig, like in Mad Max. You know, like a huge, like a truck.
Yeah.
With like a Bobby knocker in the back was this like huge. Have you seen the newest Furiosa? So
No, I haven't seen that one.
you gotta look. That's what a real war rig looks like, with like stuff in like a crew that defends it, and you just live on the road. All you do is you just drive up and down Fury Road between Gas Town and Bullet Town or whatever. Bullet City. I can't remember what.
See, I would just be on my underground train.
Because that would be cool too. Underground train, man.
See, I thought this through. And then
Did think that.
so my robot army, you would think it'd be like Terminator robots. No. I'm talking robot bees, bro.
Oh,
They're just like I'd have like tiny little ones, and I'd have swarms of them.
cyanide.
How are you gonna stop the? You'd have the EMP. You'd have the EMP the whole thing.
No, yeah, fuck.
The only
They
way
have robot dogs, like the Boston Dynamic dogs.
that'd be said, but like 3 heads. It's like Cerberus dogs.
Put a third head on that.
Put it right here.
3 heads on it, but sir, it's not economic.
But it has like a propeller, so it could fly like a helicopter. Someone thinks like they got away, they climb a tree.
just to catch everyone off guard, you know.
That'd be great, man. Yeah, robots are great. Yeah, so robot bees would be, and the robot bees would live in these beehives that I could launch into different territories. So I would just launch these like little pods, and then the bees would just be programmed to exterminate all life. And so that's how humanity would stabilize itself by you putting robot bees, and that's the new, the new ruling powers that we're gonna install.
The bee overlords.
We're working hard on these bees right now, and
Kuznetsov dynamics, you know. Yeah.
it's Mikhail secret projects. Get some lasers in there. I do think a cyberpunk dystopian future would be kind of cool. So in my like ayahuasca fast forward, it was really interesting because I had an implant. It was
in your vision, or what do you mean?
in my vision, yeah. And so I didn't have my human body. I was like an entity, but I had a implant, and it was like a spiritual amplifier. And it was really weird because you're talking about this like shift in consciousness. It was basically a amplifier of consciousness. Is what it was. So I do think that there is this cyborg kind of situation that we're going to see, and talk about like sports, like should people with robot legs be able to play in the, you know what I'm saying? You're going to have all sorts of interesting situations there. But I do think we're going to have reticular scopes, and because the military-industrial complex is for sure creating this stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to see some cyberpunk-esque type of stuff, and I think that's actually really cool. I'm excited. I know a lot of people are like really freaked out by it, but I've always wondered, like when you go to a party, right? Like if you wanted to just be able to, I just want like everyone's social media. Like why can't I just go scan?
Say just scan it like you'd import an email list.
It doesn't seem like it would be that hard, So I think we're going to see some really cool technological social hacking over the next like 150 years, because we've now gotten to where the chips that we're using are like can process a lot. Like we just developed this tech, man. Like we didn't have it. Like we had our first home computers. Like you and I are in that generation, right? Where it's like,
yeah.
Like, did you ever play Wolfenstein 3D?
No, I played older shit too. My dad was like the first guy, one of the first guys in Austria to have a Macintosh.
Oh.
Like not an iMac, like a Mac, like with the, you said it earlier, like the rainbow Apple logo on it.
Oh.
Not the cool white transparent, the rainbow Apple logo. Oh. And on there we played Lemmings.
The big chunky one.
You remember? Yeah, the big chunky one. The fucking Lemmings we play. Full Throttle, Marathon. Anybody really, if you remember Marathon, comment down below. I don't think anybody's ever going to comment, because they're bringing out a new one.
You'll have one guy.
And that was the first shooter. It was like very Doom-esque.
Yeah.
It was right after Doom. That's the kind of shit we play.
Dude, it's crazy to look at just graphics, right? Like Unreal Engine 5 just came out or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, so look at how far we've come. Like I'm so proud of us.
Yeah.
Like why is the problem you have is you have this social, you have this media thing that like only responds to negative stuff.
Yeah.
So it just like shoving. If we were to just like Imagine if that wasn't there. Like how much, I think we're actually okay. Like, you know what I mean? If it wasn't this constant shit show of just everything so negative. And it's funny, I always thought it'd be really cool to like have a passion project, just call it like positive news.
I love that. I was gonna think the same, man.
Timmy saved a puppy today.
Yeah,
Everyone, no, Timmy. You know, like just happy, and it's just all happy.
Like, hey, we just got closer to, like, one step closer to curing fucking cancer. Like, I haven't watched the news in years, but I'm like, I feel like people are in dire need to hear some fucking positive news, man.
They tried it, and the ratings were so bad they had to like stop doing it. That's the crazy thing.
God damn it.
So like I'm so optimistic, but man, like the populace is just like so like man, and it's tough, right? You get it. I mean, we were out here on 6th Street, and we see, you know, the state of things, and I don't know if just like positivity and mindset shifts is enough. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like there needs to be a systematic shift, and it is like pro entrepreneur. Like what we're doing is important. What Elon Musk is doing is important. We need to keep doing that, and I think people like that need to be protected and rewarded as much as possible, because it's the fabric of what makes society work.
Yeah, the thing is, pro entrepreneur for sure. Can you turn on the AC? But also, it's again like, you know what? I don't believe that the positive news nobody wanted to watch it. I would literally fucking put that on my calendar and be like, I would watch that every day. Like even if it's just 20 minutes of good news.
It just becomes like a podcast kind of situation. It's like, what are we programming ourselves into, right?
Yeah.
And I think we absolutely can just make a choice to like, hey, let's just program ourselves into this earth freaking rocks. Let's protect the earth. Let's be nice to each other, and let's keep the competitive nature.
Yeah.
And that's
exactly that's it.
Yeah. And that's where everyone's messed up. Everyone was like, oh, it's got to be, we're all equal. No.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Equal outcome bullshit.
No, it doesn't have to be that way. We can still be nice to each other. Look at, I think the best example of this is at mixed martial arts. Look at top champions in MMA when they win and what do? They'll choke the guy out, and the guy's boom, and then they give each other a big hug because they know how hard they fought.
Yeah.
So we have this ability to have this competitiveness and this mutual respect for the inherent desire for the other person to also thrive, even though they are a competitor, right? Like, I really respect this person. I hope he has a fantastic fight against me. I think we've got the better team, but there's not a negativity towards that. There's a respect for the work that the other person is doing. So I think we have the capacity for this, and I think once we take that to like a corporate level, we're just gonna blow up, and we're gonna have massively sustained population growth, and we're not gonna have that sense of like anxiety, like it could all come down, because I think we for sure have that pre-programmed into us through the current rhetoric. Is like, it could all come down at any moment. Look at this thing, look at that thing, look how bad it is, and it just is not. Maybe it was necessary to establish control. I could see that. We know how people respond to fear. So maybe it was necessary. Like, I think, okay, like here's the thing. If you were a master overlord of Earth, so this is like, I think, a really good thought experiment. You wake up one day and it's just, you rule everything. People have to do whatever you tell them to do by default. There's no counterplay, right? Just like in a game where there's like a character so OP, there's no counterplay.
Yeah.
What would you actually do? Right. And I think this becomes very interesting. Like, and you would think like, okay, I would go and try and make things as good. But we all know, like, with good intentions, no good intention goes unpunished. So maybe the thing that you're trying to do that is good actually ends up hurting people.
Exactly.
And so how do you have counterplay to the situation? Is I think something that we're going to figure out. I think we're going to figure it out. And I think AI is a component of it. I think we will program. I think what will actually happen is we'll program 2 AIs and they'll like battle it out. We'll have like the destroy all humans AI and then like the protect all humans AI.
A sick idea. I would watch that show.
Yeah, you know, it'll be like BattleBots, and these 2 AIs will just infinitely try and figure out ways to preserve or destroy humanity, and we'll be caught in the middle, and we'll have this cyberpunk dystopian world where we'll be amplified with tech, and like we'll, you know, eventually enhance our lifespan. We'll have like bionic limbs and stuff and bionic heart replacement, though,
which we already have anyways.
Yeah, it's going to be nutty.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so. We'll be able to like scale a building. It's just gonna be nuts.
Yeah, it's gonna be sick.
Yeah, it's so so hyped, right? But then eventually, it's just we're gonna look at it and go like, there's no way to control this, right?
Let's just let it rip.
Just let it rip. Yeah, that's why just let it rip, and then we'll see. And then like Joe, and then Joe Rogan will become Jesus.
Yeah,
and that's it. Yeah, there you go. Jiu-Jitsu Jesus. So we'll see. And then maybe, like there's so many of these factors. We always think, I mentioned humans are so good with the information we have, but there's all these factors that are so far outside of what we can comprehend. Like, what if an alien race is already here?
We're gonna fuck them up.
What if
Fucking aliens up?
What if the people that are conscious are Eric? Let's go. Right, but what if the people that are conscious?
You piece.
But think about it. What if the people that are conscious are actually the aliens, and we've been brainwashed since childhood to be like the saviors of humanity? Because so there's this this idea that Earth is a farm for souls. Yeah, this one.
I've heard about that.
Right? So because like soul,
you're not gonna get my fucking soul,
bro. How crazy is that?
Come and get it.
Like we think we own it, but like it goes somewhere when we die. And what is that about? So you have all these crazy layers to this thing that we think we understand. But what if
it's not too far-fetched, man? You know what the cattle thinks? They're grazing on the grass. They're like, wait a minute. What if they're just farming our meat? Oh, shut up, Jimmy. Who is your conspiracy theorist? Just keep eating.
We only know what we've been told. I haven't been to space. I haven't been to space.
I haven't been to space either, man.
So
we should go to space to figure that shit out.
We should.
It's not $250K or something. How much is it? The Virgin Galactic thing? That's super cheap. Yeah,
that's not too bad. So
it's like half a Lambo.
But you can see the astronauts that are back. They have a different perspective. They're like, whoa, they are in awe because they understand how empty it is out there.
Yeah.
Because the default is not life. The default is
450. Yeah, it's still doable.
Let's go into space.
Let's go to fucking space, man.
So we've taken it for granted. The default is life. We wake up, the sun rises, right? The default in the universe is not life. The vast majority of the galaxy is dark. It is cold. It is devoid of oxygen.
Yeah.
And you fucking die. And that's it. And that's the default. And we're in this little bubble and we're like, let's throw the can in the water. It's just like, you look at it and you're like, okay, like where's the counter? Like where, like at what point does that guy just get put in a catapult and launched into space? Like, and I think eventually, like, we'll just get there. We're just going to get so fed up. We're going to be like, no, we're not tolerating this anymore. We want a good home for our children. And you fucked up. And your punishment is you get launched in a cannon to space. And figure it out up there. Have fun. Fucking fuck it. And like maybe Mars becomes this like, like degenerate colony.
Australia. It becomes planetary, bro.
I'm just saying, am I wrong? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
here's what I say, okay?
Come on, Elon Musk, get it together, buddy.
All thoughts that we have over a day, over a week, over a month, over years, they compound. They stack up. I've noticed this myself. I keep going back to this crazy 2.5 year period where we were forced to eat shit to figure out cold traffic.
Yep.
My thoughts back then were predominantly fear-based, scarcity-based. What happens if the ads are not converting? We have so much expenses just to figure out ads. What happens when this closer leaves? What happens when that closes? What happens after that? And so on and so forth. What happens when this ad campaign doesn't fire? That, over 2 years, completely changed my brain chemistry to a point where it was actually physically harder to grasp a positive, optimistic thought to a degree where I had to spend like weeks or months conscious of my thoughts to consciously replace one after the other negative thoughts that just popped up. Like, hey, that's not going to bring you to your goal. Okay, that was another negative thought. Fuck that. You've been spindling that thought for the last 2 or 3 years, and none of the bad things you were scared of fucking happened. Get your shit together. So I had to do that for like months to reprogram myself on it, and that's not just on a fucking emotional level or anything. That's literally on a biochemical level within your brain. Yeah. Every thought you have compounds. So now, where I'm like a year or two out of that, I can feel my brain chemistry having changed back to more of a less of a base level, but I still have to put conscious effort into it to be like, okay, wait, Let me feed that positive wolf. It's almost like there's two wolves within you. There's this like crazy old story of like there's two wolves within you. One wolf just wants negativity to compound, low vibrational energy, creates more low vibrational energy. The other wolf is optimistic. It wants to carry you. It wants to create awesome things. It wants to be creative. It wants to be loving. So the question is, well, which one of these wolves is going to have more power? Well, it's the one you feed.
Yeah.
So you need to make a conscious effort as a human being on a daily basis to watch and be mindful of your thoughts. That's what mindfulness literally wants to teach you. Be mindful of your thoughts and call yourself out. Hold on a second. This is a negative thought. It's not grounded in any fucking reality. It is coming from a soil that has been poisoned with scarcity and with fear, and it's growing a poisoned fruit. What you need to do is you need to re-dig into that, you need to replow that soil, and you need to take all the toxins out. So then the fruit that grow from that are fruits of giving, of abundance, of collaboration, of sharing, of creativity, of building. And the more you grow that fruit, the easier it will become for you. It's like a neurological pathway. It's like you're wading through tall grass. The first time you wade through tall grass, it will be really hard because you have to stomp the grass down to the ground.
Because then you have the path.
Exactly. But if you run 10 times up and down, you got a really neat path. You can sprint down that path and you make these positive neurological connections with much more ease. And that's exactly what you said earlier with this. We're just constantly being fed fear. All the news are all negative. Then we go on social media trying to get some dopamine. Then we see people doing better than us. Then we see people with my followers. Then we see people who claim that it's easier for them. And by the way, it never is fucking easier. The grass is always greener on the other side. So we're just compounding and compounding and compounding negativity, fear. We're not good enough. Others are better. Scarcity. The world is going down shit. So you need to consciously make an effort, A, to replow that soil, to feed it positivity. Number 2, you need to hang out with other people that nurture that environment of positivity. Number 3, you need to exchange ideas. You need to keep bouncing ideas back and forth to also logically prove to yourself that positivity is much more fruitful, is much more constructive, and is much more healthy on an emotional and psychological level for you. And I think that's really like a sort of marinade that you're creating, where you're putting your brain into that marinade, and the brain just ripens into this beautiful, positive, optimistic thing that is still grounded in realism. Because you're still gonna fucking fail. You're still gonna fall on your fucking face to feel like a moron. That you're gonna do that anyways. But don't make it harder on yourself than it already is by creating negative neurological pathways. So your thoughts compound. Make fucking sure that you're compounding into the right direction.
100%. And the more you feed one, the higher probability you're going to continue to feed that one because of those pathways.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is when you make the shift towards the positive, it at first doesn't feel good because you've had that negative pathway. So it becomes easier to send the synapses down that negative pathway. And then when you make the shift, it actually feels like uncomfortable, right? We've all had that where like our business is doing good. And like I've had this for the longest time. Business is doing good. Nothing is inherently wrong. That in itself feels wrong, right? We've talked about this together as well. And you have to almost like delusionally program your brain first to calm down. The breath work's been a big deal. So this one's been really interesting. When I was living in San Diego, we used to do this this breath work. I used to do it a couple times a week. And you think breath work, like, bro, like everybody breathes, dude. Like I don't want to hear about this stuff, but actually it made such a big difference because when you go through your day, you take these short, shallow breaths. You go, right? You're kind of doing this, but this place, Breathe Degrees, Tyler, he would do full breaths. So you go into your belly, and then your chest, and then all the way up, and it completely triggers something in your brain that is a sense of calm, a sense of peace. You know, all those negative pathways, what do they tell you? You don't belong. This creates a sense of your breath is in alignment with the universe that's happening around you. You are a part of what's happening around you. You belong. And so shifting the breath, whenever I find myself in this kind of desire, because I think it's like a trauma response where we desire for it to not be good so that we take action. Because if we take action, we decrease the probability of failing, increase the probability of success so that it cannot be good, even though it's already good as it is, and we're not able to accept that for whatever reason. And maybe that's why we're entrepreneurs, because it's never good enough. And for me, it's this duality of it's never good enough and it's perfect the way that it is. And finding that sweet spot of there's a book, Self-Made Billionaire Effect, that talks about this idea that you can have two seemingly opposite ideas be true at the same time. I think this is one of those things, right? Like, do you need systems in your business or do you need to organically nurture talent? Probably both. This is another one of those, right? And so then you sit there and you go, okay, I have massive anxiety because I want to break stuff, because I feel anxious that it's working. And what is that core belief that was installed in me that makes me believe that having things be good isn't right for me? And I think there is like a deserving kind of component where, other people deserve this good life. And it takes you a long time to kind of understand that like the work that you've done is deserving of the result that you're getting, period, in both directions. If someone's going out and drinking every weekend, you are deserving of feeling like you didn't really accomplish much because that's what you did, right? And so that's also creating a pathway. And for us to be able to, self deduction is very, very difficult for humans. So take being like a DJ on tour and having like beautiful women around you, right? To not pursue that biologically feels wrong because we're wired to pursue that. And we are now getting to the place in society where we can control these things. Before, actually controlling these things was a detriment, because if you were, a conqueror and you didn't go and pillage and so on and so forth, like you were actually kind of less on the resources, right? But now there's no loss there. So you're seeing this threshold of humans who are able to say, from a principle-based perspective, go, no, I'm not willing to do that. And I think we've had that. I think we've had that in top leadership, in generals and stuff like that in the past, of like leaders, philosophers, stoics, etc. But I don't think we've had it to where you have men in the population that are genuinely excited to have a core principle that they stick to, and then also have women that also have the same. I think we're actually at the peak of the desire for principle-based living right now, because of all of this degeneracy that you're just seeing everywhere, right? Everything's a nightclub. Everything is bottle service. Everything is cheap and plasticky right now. Everything just feels cheap and plasticky. So to find real heirloom tomato humans, you know what I mean? Like people with substance are going to win. So anyway, that's just where I'm at, just out here building robots, robot bees
Robot bees forever, man.
Yes, sir. For life.
Robot bees for life.
Well,
Mikhail, it's a pleasure to know you. We've been knowing each other for what, 10 years? Almost 10 years? Quite a long time.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
You're a fucking legend. I love you.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks for being on my podcast. How can people find you? How can people work with you? Get in touch with you?
Just hit me up on Instagram at MVKBiz. Nice and easy.
Yeah, we're going to put the link down below as well. And I was going to say keep crushing, but I have no doubt you will.
Dude, of course.
So let's go. GG, bro.
Love you, bro.
Love you, man.
A lot of people see these podcasts, they say, Max, hold on a second, you got all these great creators, online coaches, and entrepreneurs on your podcast. I see all those folks making insane amounts of money, buying real estate, buying cars, going on vacations. I see you, Max, traveling the world, just having a jolly good time. How can I get this kind of life? How do I get to travel the world, be my own boss, and make very good money? And then I always answer exactly the same. I always say, listen, I've literally been in the online coaching space since 2011, 12-ish already. So that's over 10 years. I've helped over 3,000 people since 2019 get started with their own online coaching businesses entirely from scratch. We have so many countless clients that we've helped to their first $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 plus per month. So what I do clearly works. I actually know that we are literally the best people on the internet right now to teach you this thing. And the way we teach you this is, in the beginning, you can literally jump on an entirely free consultation call. And on that call, you, me, or someone from my team will get together, right? We will look at what exactly you could do in order to get started with your own coaching business. We'll tell you where to post, what to post. We'll give you templates. We tell you how to get your first clients so you can make money build a little bit of brand on the side, and keep making more and more so you can have the freedom lifestyle and travel the world, so you can pay all your bills, so you can give back to mom and dad, so you can build an awesome future for yourself and your kids or your future kids. This right here is literally the only key you really need. There's a link down in the description below for you to book that call. If you cannot find the link, it's maxtornow.com/call. Hop on that call. Now, these calls are very, very sought after. We actually are literally struggling to get all the calls handled. But if the link still lets you through, it means we still have a spot open for you. So if you want to create wealth this year still for yourself, you want to do this fast and you want to do it reliable, this call is for you. maxtornow.com/call. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.